Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call the City of Deltona City Commission meeting to order for Monday, April 18th, 2022. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Bradford?
Here.
Commissioner King?
Here.
Commissioner McCool?
Here.
Commissioner Ramos?
Present.
Commissioner Sosa? Here. Vice Mayor Vila Vasquez?
Present.
Mayor Hersberg?
Here. And now we're going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Commissioner King this evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening we have Chaplain Anthony Alvarez from the Deltona Fire Department to bring us the invocation. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And then the national anthem will be sung by 14-year-old Uralis Merced from Heritage Middle School. Please rise, uncover.
Good evening, everyone. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we come before your presence, Lord. We thank you for this day that you've bestowed upon us, O Lord. I ask you that in this meeting, Father God, they may have resolve in everything that they had planned, Father. Bless these people in this community, Father God. Bless all the people of Deltona. Bless the commissioners and their families, Father God, and each and every one of us as we leave this place today, that you put angels around their cars and take them home safely the way you brought them here. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that her flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job. Thank you. Here, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of April 4th, 2022, and the special commission meeting of April 6th, 2022. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Commissioner Ramos. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the fun part of our evening, presentations, awards, and reports. First up is a presentation by Terry Ellis on the Deltona Community Gardens accomplishments, needs, and the future plan. Ms. Ellis?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. So a little history about the gardens. It was started in 2016 by Jim and Paula Pescia. The city donated a shuffleboard court that was going unused, and their vision has grown into a place where we can grow, play, and connect, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Maybe. Okay, how do I get it to go? Oh, there we go. Okay. So grow. So we are growing not only just the gardens down there, but we're also growing a community gardening culture. Gardening is a way of life, so I want to say, first of all, that if we have any backyard gardeners out there, that you are also welcome. We're not just talking about community gardens. Healthy living and healthy eating. Recently, one of the things that we've done as part of that is we've connected with the Wheels on Meals program. We've approached them about the possibility of maybe donating fresh produce to them. So, that's one of the ways that we're contributing to the community to support healthy eating. And then also, we're growing a sustainable environment and a healthy ecosystem. So the ecosystem is a community of plants, birds, pollinators, the wildlife, and it's all there to form a balanced system. So the community gardens, the backyard gardens, the parks, et-cetera, we're all part of taking care of the environment. And we are definitely educating people about the importance of a healthy community. And COVID actually brought that, showed us the importance of that because, when we didn't have some things in the grocery stores, those of us who did have the backyard gardens and whatnot, it was nice to be able to access that. So it is very important. So play. We are available for youth activities, Boy Scout clubs, after-school programs, homeschoolers so that they can have outdoor classrooms. We want to get the kids there and participating in the gardens. We want to sow those seeds early so that they understand how important it is. And having the kids there has been fantastic. We've been working with Deltona Middle School, and we've had a few other opportunities there. And to see the kids when they come to the garden and they see how something grows and how it's planted and where it comes from, it's a lot of fun for them. So we have a lot of other opportunities to bring youth into the community gardens. We have a Mother's Day program right now. That's about halfway full. We still have some more tickets, but the kids are going to come, they're going to decorate a pot, they're going to, and a card, and they'll plant a flower for mom so that they'll have a nice Mother's Day gift. So we're also looking for ways to get the kids down to the gardens as well. So connect. So part of our theme is to connect. So we are connecting with the community. There's been a lot of things going on. I don't know if you saw the Hometown News article April 1st, but the Deltona Community Gardens was prominently featured. Thank you, Diane Carey. But these are some of the things that we see possibilities for the gardens. Things like plant sales. We had a phenomenal plant sale during our opening in October, and so we want to carry that on. The how-to classes. As a matter of fact, we're looking at maybe having a how-to class, how to build birdhouses. And that is hopefully going to be our Father's Day event. So, as well as how to garden classes. A lot of people contact us. We've had a few people contact us and say, listen, I don't know how to do this. So we can connect with the community and get them started with how to garden. Arts and music. We have this space there where we can do something like have an afternoon music in the gardens, as well as things like plant shows, art shows. We can do that here in Deltona. We can do that here in our gardens as well. We want to engage the community. And some other things that have been looked at is having meditation or yoga and just building those social ties. We want to bring people in. Deltona is much more than a bedroom community, which, we've talked about that, and we're getting further and further away from that because people want to connect and socialize, where they live and with their friends and family and with the people that they see, in the grocery store and in the pickup line at school. So this is an opportunity, another opportunity for us to do that and to connect with the community as well. So looking to the future, some of the things that have been talked about and we'd like to work towards, we'd like to have a milkweed nursery. We all know that Deltona is a monarch city, and we want to expand the butterfly gardens as well, but having that milkweed nursery is going to not only support the butterfly gardens, but we want to be able to support the community as well. Every spring, everyone's always looking for milkweed, to feed the hungry butterflies. And if any of you are butterfly gardeners, you know that your milkweed can get eaten up pretty quickly. So having an actual nursery right here in the city is going to be very helpful. I've talked a little bit about Meals on Wheels program already and donating that fresh produce. We feel that if that's something that the Council on Aging wants to do, we feel that that's going to really be a benefit. We've been looking at hydroponic gardening. There's some opportunity to not only have the raised beds that we're building, but also have the hydroponic gardening. So again, for someone who maybe doesn't want to get into the traditional, get their hands in the ground type of gardening, hydroponic gardening is an option. And as a matter of fact, you can grow so much in a hydroponic garden with a very small amount of space. So we're looking at bringing that on as well. So hydroponic gardens and tower gardens. And then also adding a fruit and flowering tree section to the gardens. We want to get that cross-pollination going to better support the vegetables that are growing in the gardens, and then also support the pollinators and the birds that are in our garden as well. So those are some of the things that we're looking towards the future. And that's just a very small representation of things that we've talked about. We're always getting contacted. We're getting contacted much, much more. People are aware that we're here. We were contacted this week by a Girl Scout troop that wants to plant a tree as one of their projects, and they don't know where to do it. And so they contacted us, and we're talking about if we either planting it down at the gardens, and if that doesn't work out, then maybe helping them to locate somewhere here in the city. So it's definitely becoming a resource that people are learning more about, and our numbers are growing, the participation is growing. So building that garden community is very important. So in doing that, let's talk about what we need. We need volunteers. We have, maintenance projects, some cleanup things, and also, we have events. And for example, the Mother's Day event, we're going to have about 50 or 60 kids that are going to be coming through. And so we need people who will be able to guide them through the activities and guide them outside and get the flowers planted and move them along. So things like that. Marketing. So people who, that's their thing and they want to get out in the community, engage with the community, and develop those sponsorships and partnerships that's going to help develop the gardens. We definitely need those people. Grant writers. So obviously everybody knows the importance of grants, but here's what I want to say about grants. Is you don't have to be a grant writer in order to do this. If you're someone who wants to learn how to write grants, then please contact us, because that's something, if we can get a few people focused on just that activity, it's going to have huge benefits for the gardens. And we do have someone who is going to be working with this very specifically on locating grants and writing those grants. So you don't have to be a grant writer, you just need to be someone who wants to learn and wants to be involved. And then also those artists, musicians, craftsmen, people who want to do how-to classes. We've talked about how some jewelry making classes. We have the Mother's Day gift, the Father's Day gift, gardening how-to classes. You know, we have the clubhouse building there, and so, you know, we have the property, we have the building, so we want to use those facilities to have some things that are really going to benefit the community. So for the garden enthusiasts out there, like I said, you know, you don't have to want to rent a plot in order to participate, but it's good for you to come out and talk to other gardeners, give us your tips and tricks, you know, things that work for you, things that don't work for you, but socializing with other people who are also enthusiastic about gardening. So for anyone who does want to rent a bed down at the gardens, we have 2 seasons, spring and fall. Our spring season is March through August, which gives you about 4.5 months of really prime planting season, and then you have those plants on the end, things like peppers and okra that really, really like the summer months and the heat. And then same thing for fall. So there's 2 seasons. The costs are $20 to rent a bed for 6 months. It's $30 if you're a non-resident. And which brings me back to grants, because we would really like to get to the point where the garden beds are free. So if we can find the money for that and get the grants that would support that, that would be one of the things that we would definitely like to take on, so that anybody can come down there and get a bed and they don't have to worry about paying for it. So right now, though, it is a cost. If you want to rent a bed, you can see here is the address for the registration. There were some handouts, so this is good, because this way everyone will have the information for how to contact us. So you fill out the registration. There's a link right here where you can go to pay to rent your bed, and we'll get you started with a garden care coordinator, and you'll have a point of contact person who will walk you through the property and show you our tool shed and how the watering works and all of that. So they'll get you started. And then after that, you just bring your seeds and start growing. We do have meetings on the 2nd Saturday of every month in the clubhouse. That's a standing meeting. And then we've been having some additional meetings to take on projects. But right now, there's a standing meeting every 2nd Saturday of the month at the Garden Clubhouse. One of the things that someone raised to me recently is, well, why would anybody want to rent a bed when there's so much land in Deltona? So for some folks, you know, they like the turnkey option, because if you do rent a bed at the gardens, or 2 or 3, it is turnkey. You come, your bed is built, it already has dirt, the tools are down there, the watering's down there. You don't have to figure anything out. All you have to do is basically come and bring your seeds, and we'll get you started. So it definitely provides an option. Even though we have a lot of land in Deltona, it's definitely useful. This is information for if you are looking to contact us. Follow us on Facebook. We have the Deltona Community Gardens, and then we also focused on 2 more Facebook sites, the Deltona Gardeners and then the Deltona Garden. So besides the community garden site, you can always find information about what's going on those sites as well. We use the neighborhood app and some other Facebook sites, and we're going to be adding some more social media contacts. But right now, that's probably the best way to find out what's going on. Our phone number is here. If you have any questions about the garden or registration, our email is right there. And then if you want to donate, the instructions are there as well. Okay. And one last thing that I wanted to bring up is recently somebody asked me, is the gardens, are they sponsored by the city? And how much of the money that you guys bring in, which we don't bring in any money. But the money that is raised, how much of that goes to the gardens? So I wanted to bring up that the gardens, the property is donated by the city, and the city donates a little bit of maintenance time to us. But the rest of it, the weeding, the pressure washing, the cleaning, the building the beds, the materials, the wood, the blocks, all of that is 100% volunteers. And 100% of funds that are raised are kept right there in the gardens. So everything that is raised is going back towards that project. So we're not sponsored by the city except for, giving us the property, which we are very grateful for. The Parks and Recs Department has been very helpful to us as well. So we do want to say thank you to them. And that's all that I have this evening for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you, Terry. Great presentation. Any questions?
I just have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Terry, very much for this, because I even heard it tonight in line. I didn't know that we had a community gardens, right? And I would like to acknowledge our godmother and godfather of the gardens, Paul and Jim, standing right there in the back. Will you guys stand up for a second? These are the people in your community that had the vision for the gardens, and I want to thank you very much for your continuing vision for sustainable living. Grab them if you haven't before, and if you ever get invited to Paula's for sourdough bread, take the opportunity. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So thank you guys for continuing your commitment to sustainability, your hard work, because it's paying off and it shows. So that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradford?
Just a thought,
Yes.
since, we do have the Godfather back there. I always thought, don't get me wrong, love the Deltona Community Gardens, but I like the Pesce Community Gardens.
Well, the Butterfly Gardens is named the Jim and Paula Pesce Butterfly Gardens.
There you go.
Is it?
It is. It was dedicated at our opening in October. And right now, the plaque that we have for them, Parks and Recs is taking care of mounting that for us so that it's on something nice and sturdy. But the Butterfly Gardens is named after the Pesces.
Yeah, it's just not that Pesce Community Garden. I mean, he fought for that extremely, extremely hard. I think that was after the chicken fight. So
I wasn't here for the chicken fight.
We've learned to
What's the
kind
chicken
of,
fight?
if Jim comes up, you're in for a battle. But you know what? They have been very instrumental. And Deltona Strong, you guys have done a great job taking their vision and going forward with it. And I know it is a lot of time and effort of the community. It's not just Deltona Strong. There's a great group of individuals that come out there that are pretty dedicated. And, without all of you guys, we wouldn't have that. So I do want to tell you guys, thank you.
Thank you very much.
But I still like Pesce Community Gardens.
We'll have to talk about that.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate it. Okay, next up on our agenda is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Commissioner McCool?
Is Amanda here?
Amanda? No.
To accept this tonight, but I'm going to read it anyway. Here, whereas 2022 marks the 21st anniversary of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to increase awareness about the causes and risk factors for sexual assault and empower individuals to take steps to prevent it in their communities, and whereas it is time to draw attention to the prevalence of sexual assault and educate individuals and communities about how to prevent it. And whereas sexual harassment, abuse, and assault are widespread problems. And whereas in the United States alone, nearly 1 in 5 women, hear that, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 67 men have been raped at some time in their lives, and that 1 in 6 boys, 1 in 6 boys, and 1 in 4 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused before the age of 18. And whereas sexual harassment, assault, and abuse can happen anywhere, including work, school, and entertainment venues, and whereas every year the last Wednesday in April is recognized as Denim Day, a day of visual awareness in which people are encouraged to wear denim to combat victim blaming and educate others about sexual assault. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and commission of the city of Deltona, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we encourage all citizens to speak out against sexual assault and support local efforts to assist victims of these crimes in finding help and healing that they need. Executed this 18th day of April 2022, and there are an awareness of Denim Day. There are buttons on the back table there. Take them into your government, take them into your communities, and observe Denim Day if you remember that. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commission, for doing this. It's really important in our community. We do have assaults up, and we need to be fighting this locally in our schools and communities. Don't be afraid to talk about it and share about it. So thank you guys very much, and I'll make sure that Amanda gets this proclamation.
Thank you, Commissioner McCool. Okay, it's been brought to my attention before we move on to our next item on the agenda, item 6A. It has been brought to my attention that we have a change in the agenda. City Attorney, what is the change in our agenda today before we begin our business?
Sure. Item 6D is the second, can you hear me?
Is her mic on?
Maybe I'm just not hearing myself. Is the second public hearing on food trucks?
Yeah, we can't hear it. Is there?
Okay.
Hang on, Marcia. Is it on? Okay, try it again.
I think it's on. Maybe it's
Okay.
on. Okay.
Just not loud enough.
Anyway, item 6D was to be the second public hearing on food trucks. We had an issue with advertising, so we're going to ask the commission to continue this to the meeting of May 2nd.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
May 2nd?
May 2nd.
Commissioner King? Properly moved by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner Ramos to continue this item to the commission meeting May 2nd. So may we vote on the continuation, please? And the motion passes 7-0. We expect it to be on the first meeting in May,
Yes,
properly advertised.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll go ahead now and move on to our first item, ordinances. And just to apologize for that, for anyone that was here for that item, that's why we moved that forward, if anyone was here, to give them the courtesy that it's not on the agenda tonight. So item A, 6A, public hearing, ordinance number 07-2022, rezoning request RZ21-004 for a plus or minus 39.36 acre tract from single family classification R1a to residential planned unit development RPUD at first reading. Mr. Paradise.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. This is a rezoning. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. I'm going to turn the floor over to our attorney, Ms. Seagal George, to conduct the swearing in and to guide the ex parte disclosures.
Thank you, sir.
Would everyone who plans to give testimony in this matter please raise your right hand and stand? Anybody who wishes to speak? All right, thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. And also, those of you that speak, will you also identify whether you have standing when you appear? That means, did you get a letter that said, what's the?
It's the 300-foot radius.
That you're in a 300-foot radius. If any of you that want to speak, will you please let the commission know? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, next thing. Madam Mayor, would
Yes.
you please now query the commission every member as to any ex parte communications that they may have had in this matter. And remember, a site visit does qualify as an ex parte communication.
Okay, we'll begin with Commissioner King. We'll just go right down the row. Any ex parte communication regarding this agenda item?
Well, it might have been a long time ago, but I think I had a meeting with some of the developers at one point, but it was so long ago I can hardly remember it. And other than that, I don't think there's been anything else.
Can we just take a quick minute? Is someone in the back, is there a way to turn the volume up on our mics a little bit? Commissioner King, you're done, right? You can hear them? We can't hear out here. Can you hear? You're having trouble hearing out there a little bit, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, Commissioner McCool?
I have had, ooh, that's good.
Yeah, there we go.
Right. I have had ex parte communication. I have visited the site, both of the side streets, the site itself. I've met with some of the neighbors. I also met with the developer last year regarding this project and the developer's attorney about this project as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I as well have had ex parte communication with one of the attorneys, Mr. Mark Watts.
And I myself also have had an ex parte communication with Mark Watts. Vice Mayor Avila Vasquez?
Thank you, Mayor. I've also met with Mark. I drove around the area, I think it was sometime last year, after I spoke to the developers. I think it was sometime last year that I also met with them.
Commissioner Bradford?
On April 12th, I had a Zoom meeting with attorney Mark Watts on this project.
Commissioner Sosa?
I've met with the landowner and his associate probably back January, February of 2021, as well as have spoken to a couple residents, and I've driven by the property multiple times.
Thank you, sir. Marcia, that completes the ex parte communication from the commission. So we're done with the formalities. Mr. Paradise, staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the commission, Ron Paradise, Community Services. For the record, ordinance number 07-2021 is a request to rezone 39 acres of land from R1a to residential plan unit development. The project's referred to as Lakeside Landings. The 39-acre site is a square-shaped property located in the south central section of the city, generally south of the Fort Smith thoroughfare and east of the Normandy Boulevard corridor. The property is accessed by a local road network and abuts Alex Lane, generally on the west, and Barger Drive to the south stubs out to the property. Currently, the property is undeveloped. The property is mostly forested with a dense mixture of pines and scrub oak. Approximately 1.46 acres of the site contained within 4 individual polygons can be considered wetlands. 0.82 acres of these wetlands can be considered a lacustrine system associated with Lake Sydney. 0.7 acre area of wetlands is isolated and located in the northern section of the property off of the Monterey, generally off the Monterey Road corridor. This northern wetland can be considered herbaceous in nature and, as mentioned earlier, is isolated. The remaining wetland areas are very small, and one is 0.09 acres and the other is 0.07 acres. The two smaller wetlands, because of their small size, isolated condition, and limited ecological function, fall well below the 0.3 acre exemption threshold within the city's wetlands ordinance. This rezoning request is to facilitate a single-family dwelling unit neighborhood of 126 units. There's been some modification to this to reduce the unit count ever so slightly. I'm not going to steal the applicant's thunder on this. I'm going to stick with the numbers that appear in the staff report that's part of your all's agenda. The lots will be used for detached single-family dwellings and will facilitate a suburban development pattern we're all familiar here within the city of Deltona. Lot sizes will range from 5,625 square feet to over 13,000 square feet. Some variety in lot sizes associated with this project. The project does abut existing lots platted as part of the Deltona Lakes subdivision. The Deltona Lakes platted lots are typically 80 by 125 feet in depth, 10,000 square feet, typical Deltona Lakes lot. While the subdivision features lot sizes down to a little over 5,600 square feet, the project is designed with larger lots along the margin of the project, ranging in size from 6,250 square feet to over 13,000 square feet near Lake Sydney. Some of the lots along the periphery of the project, especially associated with the radius of the roads, are in the 9,000 square feet range. Smaller lots are more internalized to the project with the intent, the design is to create a transition of smaller lots on the margin of the property where they abut, larger lots on the margin of the property where they abut the Deltona Lakes lots on the edge of the land. And then the smaller lots, like I said, will be more internalized, and these smaller lots do have a precedence associated with some of the subdivisions recently approved by the city, like Cortlandt Park, for example. Lakeside Landing will be a master plan community, and as a residential planned unit development will be associated with a written development agreement. The project will be associated with amenities like a trail, a lake overlook, and a tot lot, which is a small neighborhood-oriented playground. The new neighborhood will have architectural standards, and there are provisions to better manage residential parking. As we all know, residential parking is a perennial source of debate within the community. Finally, this community will be associated with a homeowners association to help manage the aesthetic and the use within the project. Be less anticipating there will be less reliance on the city's code compliance apparatus. The property is currently designated for urban uses on the city's future land use map, designated low-density residential on the future land use map, density range of 0 to 6 dwelling units per acre. The property is zoned R1a. The R1a zoning classification is an urban zoning classification that allows lot sizes no smaller than 9,500 square feet. Basically, this rezoning does not involve a change from a rural-oriented zoning classification such as RE1, which has a minimum lot size of 1 acre, but represents a request to change from an urban zoning, R1A, to another urban zoning, RPUD. It's not a binary decision about will the property be developed at an urban capacity or not. I'm going to talk about densities. All these numbers are expressed in net terms. This is intended to be, an apples to apples representation of density. The net density of the property, as proposed, is 126 units. Like I said, I'm not going to steal the applicant's thunder. They're going to unveil kind of a slightly different plan. This number is, the number is the amount of lots that can be developed if this project's approved. Roads, amenities, environmental areas, stormwater are basically netted out. And that's, what the yield is, 126 units. Under the existing R1A zoning classification, staff feels that the property could reasonably develop with 100 units. a difference of 26 units. Now, the applicant did do a design, a subdivision design of this project with very limited open space and no amenities, and their design, their schematic, they came up with 98 units. So somebody back in Plan Development Services, the planning staff back there, did a pretty good job on the design and coming up with 100 units. Like I said, we're going to stick with 100 units and 126 units, both net figures. And these numbers basically represent the best available data, apples to apples comparison. Let's talk about infrastructure. The project will need to be served by water and sewer service. Water is currently available, and sewer will be extended most likely down the Fort Smith corridor via the trade winds and the Barger Drive roadway to access the property. The city has approved a pioneer agreement to facilitate the extension of sewer to serve this property. And just to be clear, sewer will be needed either way, if the property is developed under the R1a or the RPUD requested zoning. There's adequate school capacity to support the 37 units that are anticipated to be generated from the project. Traffic. The traffic was modeled at a density of 132 units. As this project has evolved, it's first started northward of 130 units, and the unit count has come down here as this project has evolved. But for the purpose of their TIA, they modeled 132 units. Basically, according to the most up-to-date ITE traffic manual, one dwelling unit generates 10.1 trips per day. And at 132 units, this will generate 1,342 trips. The project has been scaled back to 126, and the units would generate 1,273 trips at 10.1 trips per dwelling unit. These trips will use the existing local road network to access the East Normandy and Fort Smith thoroughfares. The majority of the traffic, based on the traffic impact analysis gravity model, more specifically over 75% of the trips will be using Alex Lane and Monterey to access the Normandy corridor and head west. Again, this is based on a gravity model, and most of the TIAs that are generated here for projects within the city have the I-4 corridor as an attractant. It attracts trips, which makes sense because, you know, most of the commuting traffic in this city tends to be I-4 oriented. And those trips expressed in the numbers would be 987 trips down the Alex and Monterey corridor. The remaining trips will use Barger Drive to the south to access Fort Smith via trade winds. Most of those trips are heading eastward down the Fort Smith corridor and presumably going to access maybe Super Walmart or the State Road 415 area. And, you know, using the splits, about 203 of the trips will use Barger Drive and eventually accessing Fort Smith Boulevard. While more traffic will be generated, the city local road and thoroughfare system or network in the area has the capacity to support the added traffic associated with this project. Alex, Barger, and Monterey are not well served by sidewalks. One of the things that staff looked at was how do we increase safety in the area when there is going to be added trips on the local road network. And to improve safety, the developer has agreed to construct a sidewalk along both sides of Alex Lane and Barger Drive. The city, for its part in it, will commit to the installation of sidewalks along trade winds. Staff is also suggesting that the City Commission, as part of this, direct that Monterey also be treated or prioritized for the treatment of sidewalks as well. Finally, there will be a fair share agreement contemplated associated with the traffic generated or the traffic impacts generated from this project. And a potential improvement would be the facilitation of signal changes at the intersection of East Normandy and Fort Smith Boulevard. And that would include a continuous right turn lane signal from the movement from East Normandy onto south or eastbound Fort Smith, while there is a protected left-hand movement signal for the left-hand turn from Fort Smith onto East Normandy Boulevard. The project does not greatly deviate from the existing entitlements. We're talking a difference of 26 units. Advantages of the Lakeside Landing project are as follows. The neighborhood will be subject to strict parking standards. We talked about no parking on the grass. Each dwelling unit will have a minimum of a two-car garage and enough space in each driveway to accommodate 2 other vehicles. The project will also be designed with overflow parking strategically located throughout the subdivision. The project will be subject to architectural standards. The project will be amenitized. Trails, lake overlook, a tot lot, and buffers. There's going to be a buffer proposed along the Alex Lane at 25 feet in width, and there will be a minimum of buffer of a 10-foot buffer along the northern margin with a larger preserve area associated with the wetland along the northern terminus of the property, and a 10-foot buffer along the east and southern boundary lines. This buffer is going to be enhanced somewhat by a fence. Again, I'm going to let the applicant explain that to the City Commission. The project design is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. There are no environmental resources that will be impacted. Infrastructure will be available and level of service standards will be maintained. The project will facilitate sidewalk improvements, and the project represents a more compact and efficient use of existing city land resources and infrastructure. Therefore, staff recommends the City Commission approve ordinance number 07-2022, rezoning the property from R1 to RPUD. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The project, as mentioned, is compatible, and there is infrastructure available to support the project. I'll be happy to field any questions you all may have with regard to this request.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Paradise? Go ahead. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Ron, do you know if there was any kind of neighborhood meeting?
Yes, there was.
There was?
Yes, the applicant did do a public scoping meeting, and that was back in, I want to say, in the fall of 2020, I believe, or maybe 21. I can't remember. But this project's been, in the pipeline for some time now.
And every home within that radius, 300?
That is how the applicant handled it. They notified everybody within the 300-foot mailing radius.
Okay. Another question is, can you tell me where the exits and entrance of this project will be?
To the south will be Barger, and to the west will be Alex Lane.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
Ron, a couple of questions here that I want clarified, okay? The 300-foot for the notification, right, for the people with standing, I don't think that there's anybody within. How many people was that? Do you have a total of how many letters were sent out?
I do not know, but it was a substantial amount because along the north and the east and to a certain extent the south, is, surrounded by a tier of Deltona Lake's 10,000 square foot lots. So it was a substantial mailing. I just don't have the exact number.
Okay, because I'm trying to clarify, because when I stopped and spoke with neighbors, no one said that they got the actual letters. There was a notice put up which was standing on Barger, but not Alex. I mean, I know that we put it and we noticed it.
Yeah.
So I'm just wanting to see how many received that, because there's not that many houses within 300 feet of the property. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to, if I can get that clarified, that would be fantastic. The entrance and exit on Alex Lane, right, the roads there, I noticed that in our notes, or in staff notes, it talks about the city will then assume the obligation for those roads, right? When does that take hold? Because I want it noted that the amount of traffic that are going on Alex and Barger right now is not as substantial that will be going on there, and that's not even counting the construction equipment that will be going in and out. So can you tell me who is going to be responsible for repairing the roads after construction? Because there's going to be damage. If you walk those roads, there's going to be damage there. The roads are not wide at all there. And to that also, I would like to ask the question about the sidewalks, because some of these residents, there's at least a couple of the properties where the sidewalk is going to take up most of their front yard. So can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, the city is the entity responsible for the maintenance of city roads, and Alex and Monterey are city roads. So the city will be responsible for maintaining that.
So Alex and Barger, are you talking about Alex and Barger taking care of those?
Yeah, they are city roads.
Who is going to take care of them? If they need to be resurfaced, who is going to take care of that at post-construction?
The city will.
Okay. Okay. Second question here is, when will the new survey be done, the wildlife survey? Because the old one was 2017, and I noticed that then I looked at what was state threatened and federally threatened, and there were endangered animals, tortoises, birds, herons, on the property. What do we do with that wildlife? What are we going to do as a city to protect that?
What we're going to do during the preliminary or final plat process, depending on which process they opt to go through, is require that those environmental reports be updated. For example, a Gopher tortoise survey is no longer valid after 30 days. So the Gopher tortoise survey will be real time.
So what do how does we as a city protect them? Because I noticed, like, I walked up on Two Nest myself walking in off of Barger. There's a huge one right as you walk in, and then a little as you meander that's not notated on the 2017 survey. Can you speak to that?
Are you referring to wildlife in general?
Well, the Zevco and the tortoise burrows.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, I walked up, I said, on two of them myself just off of Barger, so.
There are two options. They can preserve them on site with a 25-foot radius, or what will probably happen is they will be relocated. And they'll be, basically the burrows will be excavated, and they'll take the tortoises and relocate them to suitable habitat elsewhere.
What about the birds?
The birds, a lot of the bird wildlife will be displaced, or they will continue to reside within the buffer and preserve areas.
Okay, so I'm sure the developer will speak to this. When we go, I'm asking how that affects the wildlife. I'm just trying to understand when we go in and clear cut, right? Because I noticed I'm just asking where the birds nest, the ground birds nest, we have some on the federally and state threatened list here. So I'm asking what we do to ensure that those, because I understand that we have a legal responsibility of not taking scrub jays' nest. And here's the thing. The 2017 survey there are 3 pieces of information where 2 says that there were scrub jays observed, and then in a report during actual monitoring, none were observed, but I don't know how they go away, you know what I mean, just go away. So I'm just talking about their environment, so I would like that answered, right? As far as what our city's obligation is, right, to protect that, what do we do?
What do we do? What we do with regard to scrub jays is we require interface with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it may result in a habitat conservation plan and/or incidental take permit.
And I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
An incidental take permit or a habitat conservation plan. And that is decided with consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Typically, what that means for a developer is they simply pay money into a fund that's used to purchase property elsewhere and manage it into perpetuity for scrub species like the Florida scrub jay.
And that is written in the developer's agreement also, correct? That's
Yes, there are environmental parameters within the developer agreement.
okay. Next question, Ron, is the traffic, the sidewalks, the roads, and one part of the report that these were coming off of were at critical level. And so I want to speak to that. I'll have to go back through, but somewhere in 187 pages it talks about not trade winds, but some of the roads being at critical. Is that updated as to the trips? Because again, first of all, the roads, we are asking all of the taxpayers to pay for this development as it comes to roads. So I'm just trying to figure out I guess what our share, the city's share of that is.
Yeah, and again, that is a maintenance matter.
Okay. Parking, Ron, as part of the develop agreement, is it does the city have the choice in the developer agreement when we're doing this, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1 extra parking space per 10 houses?
Yeah, that is the ratio for determining the amount of overflow or off-site parking.
Is that city ordinance or is that state control? What is that?
No, that is predicated or lifted from the city's parking requirements for multifamily units. And the city's multifamily parking ratios require 1 guest parking per unit, for every 10 units.
Okay, and moving this, I'm just bringing up that we know that we have way more people living in places and trying to park than that. It's ongoing. So the part of the development agreement, wetlands, 25-foot buffer, is there room in the development agreement? Has it been discussed? Could it be entertained to increasing those buffers to something a little more substantial in the wetlands?
I think that the design of the project, especially for the 0.79 acre piece to the north, has featured extra land that goes beyond the 25-foot limit. I'm going to let the applicant speak to that.
Okay. Neighborhood buffers, the same thing, 10 feet, especially there are substantial trees on Alex Lane that are nice trees if we go in there. My main issue is with clear cutting. It's the bane of our city going in, and it should be addressed in future development because it's bad for wildlife, it's bad for oxygen, it's bad all the way around. So
yeah, that Alex Lane will be afforded a 25-foot in situ buffer.
And here's the thing with that, Ron, I would just want you to clear for me, or Marcia, legally, when we talk about that, the buffer, that has been stated before that there must be a buffer in place. But what happens is, because of convenience sake, it gets clear cut, and then they're allowed to replant vegetation, and it's my belief that you can't replant 30, 40 years worth of growth. So I'm asking you to clarify that.
Yeah, the goal is that it would be native vegetation, as what you see in the field today. They can't go in there and clear it, and, you know, it needs to be sectioned off. What you see, that 25-foot distance, what you see in the field today is intended to be maintained.
From the road, if I'm looking from
Yes.
Alex Lane, and I look, and so we are talking that buffer has to be the vegetation that already exists, correct?
Yes.
That vegetation
Yes.
cannot be cut down, right?
That's
And what is
correct.
that buffer, 10 foot, 25 foot?
25 feet, ma'am.
25-foot buffer from Alex Lane back, okay? All right. Also, Ron, could you talk just 1 second about the state education requirements when we are doing our concurrency, as it were? Can you tell us what that requirement is for school? Because it's one of the things that we talk about here. So can you tell me how we do that, please?
It's based on a state methodology on schoolhouse needs and, you know, based on similar generation rates throughout the state. I'm not that intimate with the methodology. I think the applicant may have something to add to that. I think the applicant's representation has a little bit, you know, more detailed knowledge of that. Just as a footnote, we are going to have the school district planner come over and talk to the planning and zoning board, kind of the educational part of their continuing education credits, and we're going to tape that and make it available for everybody to watch. So it ought to be, you know, pretty elucidating with regard to how the school district generates these demand numbers.
And just wanting to clarify that when we talk about that it is not the city of Deltona, nor is it the Volusia County Board of Education that comes up with that formula. It is the state that comes up with that formula. Is that correct, Ron?
That's my understanding, yes.
That comes directly from Tallahassee. And so, Ron, could it be said that since it is a state requirement, we must talk to Tallahassee about not including there might be seats for tails in the classroom, but there's certainly not enough teachers. So that has to be clarified through the state when they're doing that calculation.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure,
Yeah.
you know, about that.
We have deduced that we do have enough fire service and police service for that area.
Affirmative, we do.
And it's staff recommendation for 100 lots as opposed to 128 lots, 126 lots?
The staff recommendation is for 126 units.
Okay. The sewage, could you clarify, Ron, the septic sewer agreement, because there is a lot of question regarding that as far as sewage, and I would like for you to clarify for the listening audience and for the people here concerned about this, what those requirements are, that this does not mean because the development is saying that they're going on to sewer, that is Deltona going to require that the people that live on Alex and Barger and anyone else close in proximity, that they must connect to sewer?
I can't say that there will not be one day a requirement for people that have that sewer line in front of their house to connect. I can say that the city will do everything possible when that day comes to mitigate and otherwise make that transition as palatable as possible.
Ron, in your professional opinion, how far out are we talking when that possibility could happen?
A lot of it's going to depend on the state and what they do with regard to the Blue Spring Basin requirements.
Ron, can I
Yes,
jump in?
Thank you.
Right now, the city has an ordinance that we cannot force people to connect to sewer. That ordinance is in conflict with state law, which requires that if you're within 300 residential, if you're within 300 feet of sewer, you have to connect. Commercial, if you're within 1,000 feet, you have to connect. So right now, we have a conflict with state statute but we have been enforcing the city ordinance up to this point. So because of that ordinance, there would not be a requirement that they connect.
Thank you for clarifying that. Also, the proportionate share, close to, $452,000, that's from a year ago, that will be updated, correct? And what does that proportionate share cover? I'm talking about the transportation impact fees. Could you, let me back up for a second. Can you explain if the developer pays for this sewer, okay, the hookup with the sewer, and what happens, can you tell us about getting reimbursed, the developer getting reimbursed for some of that should that state mandate be passed? Do they get reimbursed for a portion of that?
Can you handle that, sir?
Can you ask the question again, please?
Certainly. If the developer goes in, this is sewered up, right, new development, I'm for that. But then if the state mandate comes down to residents that they have to sewer up, is the developer getting rebates on part of that sewering up, that cost?
Mr. Paradise indicated that the agreement is a what we call a pioneer agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Pioneer agreement, it contemplates that the developer bears the full cost of the construction to begin with, and then as connections are made, they receive the impact fees and connection fees to reimburse them back with the other portion of the sewer that's not directly related to the development.
Thank you. Mr. Paradise, could you speak to the transportation impact fees on this project?
Yes, they will be paying transportation impact fees both to the city and the county of Volusia.
Okay. And the DA, we also talk about no development in the wetlands, correct? That will be in the DA, no development?
With the exception of those two exempt polygons.
And could you explain that, please, as far as the lift station goes and how that works?
Yeah, basically those two small, and they're like 2,000 and 3,000 square feet respectively. The lift station, basically that area will just be leveled off, brought up to grade, filled in. And the other one will be just filled in to accommodate to lots 84 and 83, I believe.
Okay. And we've spoken to, there is in the report also significant hydrological fluctuation there. We've addressed that, right? We've addressed that, right? As far as flooding out there in some of those areas where we talked about there was significant fluctuation out there as the water goes.
With regard to Lake Sydney, yeah, there can be significant fluctuation.
Okay.
You know, there's no loss will be created in the 100-year floodplain.
Okay. Speaking of that, and this is the last thing, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be thorough as I've been asked questions also. I want to understand that in the developer agreement, we have had opportunities in the past to learn, and I'm going to leave the development unnamed so as not to besmirch anyone's good name, but we had a development that happened that was clear-cut. It was clear-cut, we were dry, and we ended up having to pay for people to clean their pools, their houses, because the amount of dirt, because there was no sod placed down, because dirt was blowing in these people, I mean, there was issues. And so we have neighbors that are close. What are we doing to protect these neighbors once this development begins? On the city level, I'm not asking the developer at this juncture. On the city level, what have we done to not repeat that?
What we've done is facilitated the maintenance of those natural buffers, so that kind of acts as a windbreak. Also, during the preliminary plat or the land development phase, we do require stabilization, and we also look at things like, you know, prohibiting open burning and other practices that could potentially be impactful to the neighbors.
Okay. The HOAs, I want to talk about that for just a moment, and I must talk about that because we have had issues in the past with HOAs as far as there's another unnamed development. I think we know which one we're talking about, where there's issue with water, running water on the property, and we've gone, they've gone through a couple of HOAs. And so how are we protecting ourselves that way? I know that HOAs are just that, HOAs, but we've had issues with that in the past also, with problems coming up after the fact and not being able to be addressed. Okay, I think that you know which one I'm talking about, and there's still problems. What are we doing? What have we done? What are we doing to protect the residents that will be moving into this from this thing happening also?
Every one of these HOAs is unique to the project that it's applied to. Every one of these HOA documents is reviewed by the city. As time's gone on, city staff's gotten better about, incorporating some of these salient features within HOA or property owner association. Like one we talked about, managing a tree protection area has been, this doesn't apply to this project, but, some of these things that, we've learned moving forward with managing these projects, we try and incorporate into these HOA documents. Now, with that being said, I can't sit up here and guarantee that every contingency will be accounted for, like, daylighting water or, geological anomalies or whatever the case may be.
Okay, this is my last question, Ron. I would like for you to correct me or let me know that I am stating the right thing right now, okay? In my understanding, I would like for you to clarify my understanding. My understanding that tonight, if we do not pass this, right, that we say no to this, the developer is free to develop the initial 98 homes that this is already entitled to. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they are entitled to develop this 98 homes as they see fit, correct?
That is correct.
As long as they are following our codes, right, our ordinances and proper building principles, correct?
They would have to comply with the land development code, absolutely.
Okay. Please tell me and clarify the difference. If we say yes to this, then there would be stipulations of protective measures in the developer agreement, right, that would further enhance, we would get more protection. Can you explain that, please? That's the way that I understand that.
Yes,
So I want to.
we get amenities that, serve the neighborhood, which presumably will, help enhance or maintain property values. We have a much more robust buffer than what would normally be allowed, which is 10 feet. And we have a way to manage architectural redundancy, and we also have the parking standards.
So if this home is, either way, is approved for 98 homes, right? What is it approved for if we say yes? If we say no, it's approved for 98. If we say yes, what is it? Does it go by the staff recommendation of 100 homes? Or is it developed per the development agreement as we increase buffers, as we take out the wetlands, as we increase the buffer around the wetlands, and as we talk about the lot sizes that are on that property?
Just for clarification of the record, staff is recommending that the project be approved for 126 units, as is in the development agreement. The 126 units is, again, what is staff recommending. And I kind of forgot the rest of your question.
Well, I just saw that staff recommended 100 homes. That's
No,
where.
126.
Okay, I'm going to defer to I'm sorry that was so long, but I'm going to defer to my other commissioners, but may come back to clarify that.
Thank you, Commissioner McCool. I don't see anyone else on the board, but however, Ron, I have a question. When Commissioner McCool asked, or when you spoke about the buffer, the 25-foot buffer on Alex Lane, and you said that is 20, the question, or the answer was 25 feet from the road.
It would be from the right-of-way.
That was my question. So we have the standard right-of-way that everybody has, that you can put a sidewalk on, or whatever,
That's
however that
correct.
is, and then we would
Yep.
have an additional 25 feet of buffer. It's not from the road, including, the 25 feet does
No.
not include the right-of-way.
It would be wholly contained within the 38-acre ownership.
Okay, all right, thank you. So, no more questions, no one on the board here right now, so we will go now to the presentation from the applicant.
Good evening. For the record, Michael Woods, the law firm Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard in DeLand, here today on behalf of the applicant, and apologize for having to step in the shoes for Mr. Watts, but I was here for the planning board, so I'm here with you guys tonight as well. Ron did an excellent job in summarizing the status of the application, and the only, he said steal or thunder, it's nothing quite that large, but we took comments that we heard from the planning board with respect to some additional debuffering, because we do have that 10-foot minimum in certain locations. And we do have a plan that slightly steps down the total unit growth that goes here, but I'll walk you through all that here tonight. Again, project location, you're all familiar with this now. This is one of those rare projects where we're not out in the hinterlands arguing to kind of expand the city boundary and buffer. This is an infill project, and one that, for what I've done for my profession, don't usually get to have a project that is surrounded like this with the existing community in quite this way. So it represents a really good opportunity for us to be able to infill and get the density in place where the services are being provided. Contrast that to running it out, say, into a more rural area. It's a nice opportunity to have the more urbanized development pattern that we can utilize. These are the criteria that Ron had addressed. Basically, the number there is that 122 lots, and I just wanted to kind of clarify how we were talking through very different things. The 100 lots that I believe the city staff is referring to, it's not a recommendation, it's saying that if they came in today, their estimate, that being the city planning department, was a 100-lot yield with the straight zoning. Now, I've got an exhibit here that actually shows it closer to about 98 lots, but that's the distinction, whereas city's recommendation is that higher number at the 126, and we're coming in at 122. This is just reflecting some of the changes we made in response to the planning board. So this is that 98 lot plan, and there was a lot of conversation at the planning board about, I think Ron put it as a binary decision, either approve this or nothing comes in. And this is, we asked Zev Cohen to run through to kind of lay out using your default zoning provisions, making your lot layout and size and space. This is the yield that you get. You can see the same connection points to the northwest and to the south, and that yields 98 lots. 10-foot buffer on the perimeter adjacent to other parcels, and you've got the interspersed stormwater ponds internally, but I don't want to say vanilla, but that's what you can do. And so the question here tonight is less so about taking the undeveloped property and making a decision whether or not to develop or not. It's incremental change here. I don't want to quote the mayor of Lake Helen, the steady incremental growth. He made a reference the other day, and that really stuck with a lot of folks. But we're really here talking about the difference between that 98 that we could probably get with existing zoning and the 122 that we're proposing right now. So this is the slightly revised development plan, and to kind of orient you to what we have here. Awesome, I've got a mouse tracker. Most of this stays the same from what was presented to the planning board and what's in your staff report. So you've got your tot lot area up here. This is a centralized stormwater system, obviously accommodating the project. Our connection point here, and then through here. From an amenity standpoint that we'd already kind of talked about, we've got 5-foot passive trail around the retention pond. We've got the sidewalks that are required internally. all your roads are going to be built to your current standard requirements. We do have pockets of additional parking off-street, but servicing the community here. And this is where we kind of tweaked things a little bit. Right now we have a total of 7 lots. This is along the water body. We had previously provided for 11, and we just had kind of a sliver of an access point there, effectively to maybe do an elevated deck out or something to that effect. What we did is we raised all these lots to the larger width, and now you've got, this is about 100 feet wide, and that provides for a little bit more access to the entirety of the community to be able to access that water body. That's in part of, okay, well, if we're coming in and getting an additional 22 units or 24 units, what's the trade-off on that, right? Personally, I think it's a really good infill project, and there's sound planning principles for that. But sometimes you want to see, okay, well, what else comes along with it? And by having a deviation of the housing product, you've got 3 different lot sizes spread out through here. You're still buffering along the adjacency of the other neighborhood. You get just a little bit more. It's just a slightly better design than what that 98 layout provides for. The other detail, and this was a comment I think came from Pat Northey had raised, we've got, at the bare minimum, we've got the 10-foot wide buffer. It's, again, required by the straight zoning. It's larger in other locations as well, but it goes, it's 10 here, it's 10 up here, I believe 10 here as well. And our provision for that is anywhere where the buffer does not exceed the 10 feet, we're putting in a 6-foot vinyl fence. We'll keep the buffering along the property edge, so that's what the neighbors are looking at, and then you can put the fencing in there, but that helps further screen so the existing homes here aren't looking into the backyards of the surrounding neighbors. Well, I forgot that I made it a little bit larger and easier to read there, but that's, again, the same exhibit kind of showing what we're providing for with the project there. And again, this is that other wetland that we are not touching. I think this actually was created out of the storms back in 04, 08, and became wet and kind of remained that way. This is a quick exhibit I just want to kind of walk through when we talk about the density comparison. You look at this project and you've got certainly smaller lots than what you have in the surrounding area, right? You've got the default Deltona subdivision lots in the surrounding area, and we're coming in with a little bit of a mix. The contrast to that is you can kind of see here, this basically comes out to about 122 units within about 37 acres. It's rough napkin. This isn't going to prove the solid point or whatnot. But this is back when you developed and you didn't have as centralized control of the planning and the buffers and the like. And so that's kind of the deviation between how this looks a little bit different, but it is in keeping with the surrounding area as far as density is concerned. We're obviously well within the allowable density for the land use, but we're in pretty close density to the surrounding area as well. So I brought these 2 exhibits up. This is the Plat Area for the 2 projects. So this is Alex right here. And to your point, you've got Alex as a right-of-way, and it's actually 60 feet wide. Like, that really kind of surprised me looking into the old plats, that even though when you're out on premises, the asphalt certainly doesn't go that far, but your platted rights-of-way are 60 foot wide. Fort Smith, I think, bumps up to 70 feet. So you have a provision here, and with Alex here, and this is the residential lots there, and that's Lehigh Lake. You got some drainage through here, and then this is the Lake Sidney there. But your right-of-way right there is 60 feet wide. That's the property line there. And so that's from which it'll be measured for that 25-foot buffer. And to your point, keeping the exterior buffers natural and not cutting it down and then replanting is the intent. We can put that into the DA or make it more clear if it's not already that clear in the DA. And then this is the Barger Avenue right there. And it's a couple elements, again, to kind of bring forward and kind of show you this. This is a partial subdivision. It's not one of the larger ones. It's one of the irregular ones just because they're kind of fitting in and trying to get maximizing the development of what you can do. And so their central stormwater system there is just channeling it into Lake Sidney. Not a problem. That's what you did back in the day, and that's okay. We just aren't able to do that. We have different standards. But that's one of those concessions as to why that development pattern can look a little bit different than ours. The other point I'd bring out is if you notice with Barger here, it doesn't have a cul-de-sac. It doesn't have any type of T or hammerhead. The intent there at some point in time was for that to connect through, and effectively that's what we're doing now with our project connecting in there. And you do have the existing here, just as with Alex, that's a 60-foot wide right-of-way as well. So from the extent of being able to improve the project there. We touched upon traffic, and happy to answer the questions you may have on that. Ron did a pretty good job of summarizing the proportionate fair share and the like. School capacity, this one I do want to just take a second. I had this conversation with the planning board, and we had this conversation with the city of DeLand. We're coming out of a pattern of a lot of growth and approval, and there's been a lot of concern at multiple jurisdictions of, I know what the state tells us that what we're doing, and we're meeting all those provisions, but that doesn't feel right. How are we approving these projects? How is the school able to accommodate that? And I'm absolutely blanking on the young woman's name, who's basically the new Sarah Lee Morrissey over at the school board. She's a fantastic planner. And the level of detail that office can get into with respect to the school capacity on a weekly basis, on a classroom basis, because we reached out to her and she went to go address the city of DeLand, and the question was, well, how do you keep a hold of it? And she said, well, these projects get approved and they're 1, 2, and 3 years out. They're dealing with situations where a school teacher or a principal retires and now people want to transfer out of the school district. And it's different than when I was a kid, but it's a whole lot easier to kind of transfer in between. So they're doing a pretty good juggling act at all times, whether it's school preference, school choice, charter school, and the like. They're fairly nimble, and they have a very good idea of what their capacity is. And when they start bumping up against the head, they're able to kind of adjust and reassign where those students are able to go. But to your point, teachers. And unfortunately, with this environment, we don't have a real ability to address that, but you're dead on. Like, we focus so much on the FHS and the like of how many students are in there. It would be nice if Tallahassee gave us a little bit more help on that end as well. But from the standpoint of what you're reviewing, what's in your scope for review of the approval of the rezoning, we're square in line. But I do encourage you to talk to the planner at the school board. She's very willing to come and address the different commissions or the planning board. Ron touched on the environmental considerations, and we do have a representative from Zevco and Associates, and I will come on to the comments that Commissioner McCool is making to kind of circle back up on that. But again, in this situation, the wetland impacts are very minimal, and we're able to preserve along the water body. Again, we don't often get a chance to deal with a large project like this that doesn't have more wetland impacts that have to be mitigated against or avoided. Design and architectural examples, happy to go through that if you have any questions. And then that's our kind of the basic conclusion about, this is an infill project within the comprehensive plan. But getting into some of the comments that got raised, with respect to the condition of the roads on the surrounding area, and particularly with the construction, I think Ron is absolutely correct in that the current conditions of the roadway is a function of the maintenance plan that the city has typically for the roads. Going back to what that plat shows, would we permit those plats if they came forward today? Would we have higher, more robust requirements for the level of the roadway, the base level that gets constructed, the maintenance and all that, HOA requirements, what have you? The answer is probably yes, but we deal with what we have. There is a situation, and the impacts of our project have to be accommodated for. But to your point on the construction, we can make it as a condition in the DA that you do a pre-construction inspection of Alex and Barger to see what the conditions are on site, and then if there's damage created by the construction equipment, we can make that as a condition prior to issue of CO. That's not to say that that puts the responsibility to bring the entire project up to current standards. That still falls within the wheelhouse of the city for their maintenance of that roadway, but to ensure that we don't cause any harm with what we're doing, we're happy to agree to that. We talked about the maintenance of the roadway and the sidewalks, and again, you do have the condition, with these wide rights of way, to have the adequate space both to run the sewer line through, provide any the sidewalk and the like. But I do want to caution, make sure everyone recognizes, we get comfortable with our road being that asphalt area. And the reality is that road, if you kind of go through that immediate area, you can kind of see where there is the underground sewer or stormwater drainage that's in certain places. That gives you a better feel of what the true right-of-way is. And that's just the nature of Deltona's development pattern, that a lot of front yard, a lot of sidewalk. I think a lot of improvement may have not happened in the past to avoid impacting neighbors, because status quo works fine. If we built out to what the plat provided for, it could be a much more, certainly more robust roadway, but it has a impact on the neighborhood. Really, that's it from my percentage. And if there's any other questions, like I said, we can talk a little bit more about environmental to your questions, Commissioner McCool. But again, I think we've got a good infill project here for you, and happy to answer any questions you may have about our philosophy or how we're planning to handle all this.
Thank you. Sir, do you have any evidence presenters that you're going to be having come up here to speak next before we go to commission?
Well, I mean, yeah, why don't you guys come on up here? We'll let them kind of address some of the comments that were made first. And
Okay.
if you have any further
And then we'll go to commission questions after that.
Sounds good.
Hi there, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission. Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Mallory Tatum. I'm the environmental scientist from Zev Cohen Associates, 300 Interchange Boulevard, Ormond Beach. So a few of the constraints that you guys were talking about, wildlife, I think you guys mentioned gopher tortoises. So a gopher tortoise survey was completed back in 2017. Those are good for 90 days, and so before 90 days prior to construction, we will do another gopher tortoise survey. Any gopher tortoise burrows that are found on site will be excavated and relocated and permitted with FWC. Mentioned scrub jays. So a 5-day standard scrub jay survey was completed back in 2017. It was completed by ZCA staff scientists, and it was done per protocols of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We documented that there was no scrub jays on the site. The site is really overgrown and does not provide adequate habitat for the scrub jays. We documented that and sent a request to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they concurred with our findings that the site and the project would not impact the Florida scrub jay. Therefore, we do not need to further coordinate with U.S. Fish. Those concurrences are good for 2 years, so prior to development again, we will do another scrub jay survey and another concurrence request to make sure that the project does not impact the Florida scrub jay. Wetlands, so as part of our environmental assessment, we field delineated all of the wetlands on site, and they are shown on all of the plans. Some of those wetlands will be impacted. If the wetlands are going to be impacted, we will permit those impacts with the Water Management District. Appropriate mitigation will also be provided as well. Do you guys have any questions for me? Can I answer any other?
Commissioner McCool, you're on the board. Did you have a question for her specifically? Okay.
I just want to clarify what the state says about wetlands. What is state recommendation regarding development on wetlands, period?
So you have to show avoidance and minimization to wetland impacts. Where wetland impacts cannot be avoided and minimized, appropriate mitigation has to be provided. Usually it comes from the purchase of mitigation bank credits from a regionally significant mitigation bank.
And where are we at with this project? I know it looks, as far as wetland, 0.16 wetland.
Very small.
It's very small.
Very,
and
very small.
But I'm just being clear on that, what the state says about wetlands. Okay.
Okay, no more questions? Do you have any more? Nope, no more evidence presenters? Okay, commissioners, do you have any other questions? Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, when you talked about the vinyl fencing, the 6-foot vinyl fencing, how much area do you plan to put that fence around? I mean, because we have all of Monterey that's going to back up right into this project. So is the fencing, are you going to have a 10-foot buffer behind the residents on Monterey, a 10-foot natural buffer, and then a 6-foot vinyl fence across the back of the property?
That was the intent, as explained at the planning board, to provide for additional screening there. The idea there, and the conversation at planning board was verifying what the width of the buffer was, particularly on that eastern boundary, and what we're able to, or if we can shift. The ability to kind of shift laterally was limited, and so the idea was, to the extent that screening is the important thing, and if you look at all the subdivision layouts, you're typically looking into the backyard of somebody, but the thought process was, do you minimize how many backyards you're looking into? And that's the intent of what that's there for.
So is the 6-foot fence going to cover the entire stretch of Monterey?
Wherever there's only 10 feet, but yeah, that's a pretty good, let me see if I can zoom in here.
Because Monterey is probably the street that's going to be most impacted here.
Yeah, we're calling for right now that entire eastern boundary is being fenced, and then up on the northwest corner until the lots pull away and we're able to get additional width. That's where that additional fencing goes.
Now, Badger's currently a cul-de-sac, right? What protections are you going to take in besides a sidewalk to ensure that area still remains safe?
Are you talking? At what point are you talking about? Like during the?
When you get for one of the main entrances, I guess, is going to be off of Badger, which is currently a cul-de-sac. What are you going to do to ensure the safety? Because that usually just comes down and dead ends right at Badger. So you're going to make that an entrance.
That roadway will continue through and connect, and so you'll be able to go from the southeast terminus of Badger all the way through our subdivision, and then up into Alex if you're so inclined. So it'll connect to the open city road system there. And I believe that was what Ron was talking about with the sidewalk improvements within that area. That's not necessarily coming as part of our development, but that's one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, that's one of the focuses on, okay, the entire area is deficient on sidewalks. So to the extent we can start building out from where we are, you've got us, we're able to set the tone and build to the current standard with sidewalks, and the idea is that that'll spread out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner McCool?
Did I hear you say you're building sidewalks on both sides, on each side of Alex and on both sides of Barger? It's Barger, right? Am I crazy?
Barger.
Barger, okay.
Yeah.
Barger, Badger.
Hold on 1 second.
I'm trying to clarify that you're building sidewalks on both sides.
Can you guys go up for a second?
It was said.
I just want to make, I want to make sure I'm not misstating on that. On both sides, on Barger and on Alex. Yes, okay. Sorry, I don't want to over-represent, and then we have an issue 6 months down the road if there's confusion, but yes, that will be constructed.
Okay, Commissioner? Okay, I don't see any more comments. I just have one, and it may not be for you. Both times for the Gopher tortoises and the scrub jay, there was a reference that a survey was done in 2017. Does anyone know why that was done in 2017?
I believe there was another project that was trying to come through at that point. And I want to say there was something with a package plant or
That was the Lake Sydney package plant
I think so,
situation.
yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
So next up, we will have is there anyone here that has standing that has any presentations that you are bringing forward or any evidence presenters? People that have standing. In other words, if you have standing, standing is what you were sworn in for, whether or not you received a notice. Do you have any, and Marcia, correct me if I'm wrong, presentations from people with standing? This is just for presentations, correct?
No, I mean, it's public comment.
Okay, but
it is the folks that have standing are viewed differently in the law with regards to their comments and the fact that they will provide.
Okay.
They have standing and they would be providing evidence to the commission.
So next, anyone that has a public comment that actually received a notice in the mail with your 300-foot buffer, if you would like to come forward and we'll let Liz know who you are, this is your chance to speak with your 4 minutes. So is anyone that, if you received the notice in the mail regarding the proposed development, no notice? No notice? Mr. Paradise, what is the status? There was notice mailed out for those within the 300-foot.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The city clerk informed me that we sent out 87 mailings
87 mailings for those people that had standing. So there's no one here that actually signed up to speak that got a letter in the mail. Okay. Yes.
Ron?
No, wait,
Hold on a minute.
no. No, we're just, well, no, then we have another section for public comment. This section is specifically for those of you that are within the 300-foot area that were mailed out specifically by the city clerk's office. Yes, you'll be next. Commissioner McCool,
No, I'm good.
you're on the board.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner King, did you
Ron,
have?
were we the ones responsible for sending out the letter, or
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
we were?
Yes, sir.
So that wasn't up to the developer?
No,
or
no, no.
someone?
The city handles that
Okay.
that notice.
All right.
Okay, so we have no one here with that criteria. The next is public participation. So the next is going to be anyone that signed up for public participation. Liz will go ahead and read the names, and we'll come up in that order.
Yes, and Mayor, and those that raised their hand and were sworn.
Yes, those that were
Thank you.
sworn.
Okay, there's going to be Pamela Millen Braun, then Jose Echeverria, okay. Then Heather DeRose, and then Brandy White. So Ms. Pamela Braun, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the commission.
Can you pull your mic forward just a little? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Thank
I can hear you better.
I'm
Thank
learning
you.
these things. My name is Pamela Milliman Braun. Myself and my husband, we live at 788 Adler Drive. Our backyard backs right up to this 39-acre woods. We knew when we bought our house in 2017 the woods was there. We knew one day it would be developed. I've lived in Central Florida since '67. I've seen lots of change all over Central Florida. But we also knew our neighborhood was zoned R1a. So we weren't concerned because we anticipated this is part of our neighborhood. It's also zoned R1a. So whatever the developer builds will be in continuity with what's already here. Our neighborhood will remain homogeneous in nature. We're a community. We want to stay that way. We want to stay R1a. Yes, there's wildlife. There's black bear. They've come to our front door many times at night. Rang the doorbell 2:30 in the morning. Got pictures of it. There are scrub jay. There are gopher turtles. A whole bunch of snakes. I don't know if any of them are special kinds because I don't do snakes. But yeah, you got herons out there also. We did not receive notice for the public neighborhood meeting. We didn't receive that notice of being within 300 feet, and since our backyard backs right up to it, we should have, I would think. So I don't have answers for those questions. I'd like to have them, since we've lived there 5 years. Let's talk about the traffic. They put in the Dollar General store across from the entrance to our neighborhood off of Tradewinds in Fort Smith. In the beginning, a bunch of us were kind of concerned. Well, I don't know. It has created a lot more traffic. It's been great for Dollar General. With COVID, it turned out to be a mixed blessing with everybody wanted to stay home or close to home. But the problem is when you come down Fort Smith, as you round that corner going up to Dollar General, it's a blind corner. People come flying around that corner. There's people all of a sudden right there coming out onto Tradewinds, going straight across to Dollar General, turning right and left onto Tradewinds, turning into Dollar General. There's been accidents there already. Deltona, as you know, has a parking problem with their residential neighborhoods. We've driven our neighborhood. Everybody has 3, 4, and 5 cars. There's no 2 cars per home, period. Maybe my home, but that would be it. So you're looking at a whole lot more traffic hitting Tradewinds and Monterey and getting out onto Fort Smith. Quite a few people have already figured out they can come down Fort Smith, turn onto Tradewinds, go down Adler, and cut over to Monterey, to Normandy, to get to Saxon, to get to I-4, and miss that whole light right there at Normandy and Fort Smith. We see it every day. People racing down Adler, using it as the cut-through to get to and from that side of Normandy to the other side of Fort Smith and miss that light and all that other traffic that's out there. So you're going to see a lot more of that. So that's something to concern because.
Thank you, ma'am.
I apologize. Did I use all my time?
Mine's still,
Oh, you're still going? I apologize.
yeah, she still had 39 seconds left.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So, let's see, where was I? So that's something to concern because you have kids standing out there on the corner of Trade Winds and Adler waiting for the bus in the dark, 6:30 in the morning. I see them. Then at 8:30, there's another group of kids down near Lightfoot and Adler, again, waiting for a bus. At least down towards Lightfoot, there is a sidewalk area and a curb, but there's nothing down there at Trade Winds and Adler. And now you're going to have all the construction trucks. You're going to have more cars when people move in. I'm almost positive there'll be more than 37 kids. We talked about that formula. I don't know where they get it either, but yeah, there's not going to be 37 kids out of 126 homes impacting the schools. We all know that, regardless of whose formula was used. We know that's not going to happen. Be real. So these are things that concern us. We're not against any
I
development.
apologize. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Jose Echeverria, I apologize.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, staff. Okay, my name's Jose Echeverria. I live at 497 Trade Winds Drive in Deltona. And concerning this rezoning, okay, I am against the rezoning of the 40 acres from single-family residential R1a to the RPUD, okay, which by rezoning will allow developers to develop the Lakeside Landing project with, I understand, 126 residents. Okay, here are my reasons for being against this rezoning. Number one, 126 residents, as you all have known and have heard about all the traffic that this is going to make, okay? Now, they say at Barger, they're going to redo Barger, 2 sidewalks on each side. They're going to go ahead and do Alex Lane, 2 sidewalks each side. But what's going to be done with Monterey, also with Adler and Trade Winds? There are no sidewalks there. We have school bus stops, okay? And since 2015, when they had the Lake Sydney sewer project and a developer wanted to develop in there, it was, back then I understood it was R1a, and there were going to be put 46 homes in there. Okay, now, I don't know where this 98 came from, that as R1a is going to allow, and now we're wanting to go ahead and do 126. And granted, all these improvements are going to be in that subdivision, but the surrounding area, they're doing nothing. We have children, grandchildren. People walk down the streets with their dog or exercise, etc. And even with average of 2.5 automobiles per residence, that'll put over 500 trips down these roads, whichever way you go, not once a day, twice a day, when you go to work and when you come back, let alone if you have to do any shopping. Okay, so secondly, again, is the traffic incompatibility issues. There has been nothing done since 2015 as far as sidewalks. Barger, I believe you said you drove down Barger. It's got potholes in it, and that's in bad shape, that road is. And I lived 4 lots away from Barger, okay, on Trade Winds, okay? So then school bus stops have not been improved. Nothing's been done for the kids. You have some people, whoever they are, they like to go ahead and act like they're on Daytona 500, okay? And they speed around, leave rubber marks all over the place, and it's just unsafe for the kids. City sewer system, that's a lot of questions that has to be asked about that, because nothing has been said to us about running a sewer line down Trade Winds, and there's no sewer line from Newmark all the way down to Cortland. There's storm drain line, but not sewer. Okay. We went through rezoning issues on the Pine Ridge by Pine Ridge High School, which I believe was called the Hawks Landing. It was defeated by one of the main reasons being rezoning would not be consistent with the comprehensive plan for land use, and that it should be compatible and consistent with what's there now in the area. Okay. Endangered species, we talked about that. So in ending, I'm just asking this. Are we putting the cart in front of the horse without taking care of the...
Thank you, sir.
Heather DeRose, please.
Good evening. My name is Heather DeRose, and I live on Barger Drive with my husband and 2 young sons. We live within that 300-foot area you mentioned, and we did not receive any letter or get any visits from anyone about this agenda item, nor were we ever notified by the builder or owner about a meeting in 2020 or 2021. I'm not sure of the date since they aren't either. One of my main concerns is the increase of traffic. Currently, there are only 10 homes on our road. I live on Barger Drive, like I said, which is one of the 2 roads that will access this area. With these new 126 or 122 was the new number that they put up tonight, and say a minimum of 2 cars each, that's 252 cars, in addition to the ones that are already using this road, beyond just the residents who are using it, but the people who pass through. With this proposed number, that's just not a safe environment for our kids. It's not a safe environment for us who just want to take a walk in our neighborhood. That's a lot of trips up and down with a lot of people, and it just isn't safe. There was a note in your agenda notes that you guys handed out that said that this would increase like 126 daily trips, but that was a wrong number in your notes. It's more like 1,342 trips. And like I said, that doesn't even count all the people who will be coming in to use the proposed facilities like the trail and the park and the things like that. This does not provide create a safe environment for our children. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old. We bought this house because it was on a quiet street and a quiet neighborhood, and that's why we've stayed. Another point is that your plans say that you anticipate that this will only increase the school population by 37 students. That seems like a really low estimate for 126 homes. I don't feel as if there's been enough research on the impact to both the neighborhood and the city works, such as the schools, which, as a school teacher, and if you talk to any school teachers, we will tell you that we are already overcrowded and often over classroom size regulations. The bus stop is at the corner of Adler and Tradewinds, and the kids have to stand either on the road or in the grass, which often has broken bottles, glass, and trash in it. This stop is located between the entrance of Barger and Fort Smith. The increase in traffic is not safe, especially with even more kids standing there with the ridiculous estimate of only 37 added kids. All we are asking from the city is that you do not change the integrity of our existing community. We bought houses here in this area because of what this neighborhood offers. Larger lot sizes, quiet roads. It's why we've stayed here. It's why we bought here. It's why we enjoy our neighborhood. And we want to continue living in a neighborhood that we enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brandy White, and then Tara DeRico. Brandy White, please.
Marcia, did you? Liz, can you stop
I
her
don't have
timer?
that problem.
Thanks.
Yes. So obviously I'm against this. I'm not going to bore you guys with the usual reasons why. I think they've spoken pretty well. I do find it ridiculous, though, that it's only estimated that people within 300 feet will be affected. We all know that's not true. There's going to be a lot more effect much further out than 300 feet. The only reason I put in to speak last minute was I wanted to confirm some of what I heard between Commissioner McColl and the representatives here today. I want to confirm that Commissioner McColl, when you did your review, she mentioned that if you guys, if you were to approve the rezone, that there would be protections granted. We've heard a couple of them concessions here today and some things they promised to do in light of the rezone request. I just want to confirm that these protections will be in the agreement between the city and the property developers regarding the rezone. Is that my understanding? Can I get it out loud?
That's correct.
Okay, so essentially in exchange for the approval, the property owners have made certain promises. Correct. Perfect, thank you.
Terry DeRico, please.
Hey,
Gentleman,
Brandy, I
Terry,
can raise the
ma'am,
microphone.
Hang on one second. Marcia, did you want to swear her in as well?
Oh, I was not, no,
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I needed to do that. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Tara DiErico, candidate, District 3. So tonight, I'm just going to restate some of the facts that we've all heard over the last few weeks. So during the March 30th Planning and Zoning Board meeting, the P&Z Board heard this request and voted 5-2 to move this forward to City Commission with the recommendation to deny this rezoning request, and some of those reasons were concern for traffic impacts and environmental concerns. During the April 11th traffic calming workshop, we heard VCSO state Deltona was built on the design of 30,000 people, and then later Mayor Herzberg clarified and stated land-wise, Deltona was actually built out for 75,000 people. Either way, at our current population of 96,000 people, as stated by a World Population Review, as of 2022, our population has well exceeded the number of people Deltona was originally built out for by almost 25,000. When we look at some of the disadvantages of approving this rezoning request, and this came right from the agenda, as it is planned, the project will impact wetlands. Approval of this project will bring increased traffic volumes over existing zoning entitlements. When we look at some of the advantages of not approving, we have the wetlands will remain in their natural state and there will be less traffic in the area. So please take into consideration the advantages of not approving when contemplating how you will vote. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's not a wedding.
Yes, I do. Yes. Never once since I've been coming to these meetings on these rezones and this, you've never cared about traffic. You've never cared about the residents. There's nothing going to change tonight. I just don't like to see the people get hoodwinked. These are working people. Come on, they're trying to live in a nice neighborhood. You're not going to consider the traffic. You're not going to consider their children with the schools. Right away you say, oh no, they won't overcrowd the schools. The schools are overcrowded. I know some school teachers. Every one of them says the same thing. Traffic, you don't care about the traffic. Look at the traffic you got now. Now you're adding to it. One time you're saying, oh, well, we're not going to build no houses. We're going to put a stop on it. And then you're coming back with something that started in 2017. Come on, I mean, this is ridiculous. And of course, you got Anita Bradford with a home decor business. She's going to vote yes on it. You know that. I mean, that's a known fact there. But do something for these people. They're working people. You take advantage of them all the time. You do it, and you don't care. They're the ones that got to go to work and get stuck in traffic. Look at on Saxon Boulevard, trying to get on I-4, coming and going. Come on, look at the other way on Howland. You don't need these houses unless you're gaining something from it. And believe me, I wish I could prove it. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mayor, that closes public comments.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we can have a rebuttal from the applicant. Did you have anything, Mr. Woods?
For the record, Michael Woods, Cobb Cole, in rebuttal. Just very briefly, what I hear kind of the through push in the conversation is existing conditions are challenging at best in the surrounding area. With respect to traffic patterns, traffic speed, we heard a number of times of people cutting through and going fast. That to me seems like a traffic calming issue on the major roadways. And one of the points I would try to make with respect to the connectivity. Now, the roads as they are currently built and kind of how everyone moved to the area don't have the sidewalk standards like that you require now. But the idea from a traffic network is to be able to have cut-throughs like that. Now, they're not supposed to be speeding through. But that interconnectivity is one of the things that, whether you're talking about the county planners, city, or what have you, from neighborhood to neighborhood, rather than isolated, there's development patterns where you build a brick wall around subdivisions and you have one entrance in, one entrance out. The ability to interweave through your neighborhoods now is a good thing. It is not a good thing if people are speeding through there, but it's more of an enforcement and a design issue that I think is pre-existing and is not impacted one way or the other with our project. But I do hear that, and I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And with that, I think I'm complete. Thank you for your time.
Any questions, Commissioner, for Mr. Woods? No? Thank you. Okay, now we will go ahead and move next to the next item is a call for a motion and a second. And then Commissioner Sosa and Commissioner Bradford.
Yeah, I wasn't going to make a motion. I had a question.
Go ahead. For Mr. Woods?
Yeah. Now,
is it for Mr. Woods?
Well, either Mr. Woods or Mr. Paradise.
We'll do the motion in the second, and then we'll go through all the commission questions for either one. Commissioner Bradford.
Well, I wasn't going to make a motion either, but I will, as long as I can get a question answered as well. I hereby move to approve ordinance number 07-2022 to rezone a $39.36 acre property from City Deltona single family classification R1a to residential plan unit development RPUD, and schedule a second and final hearing on May 16, 2022 for the following reasons. The project represents an efficient use of city land resources. The project is compatible with the dominant land use character of the city detached dwellings on individual lots. The project net density is 3.27 dwelling units, is consistent with the low density residential land use designation, and there is adequate public infrastructure, including central water, sewer, transportation capacity, and school space to support the proposed development. The acting city manager has the authority to make corrections of Scrivener errors and the like.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Bradford for approval. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, before there's a second, could we clarify if also it includes updating the MDP to reduce the density slightly and to add the added buffers and other design elements that include the fence and so forth, and also to direct staff to look at also including treating Monterey with sidewalks as well. And what that would do would direct staff to update the MDP and also the written elements of the development agreement to incorporate these new features into the project.
What Ron said.
Okay, so you will amend your motion to what Mr. Paradise said. So we have a motion.
To add what Mr. Paradise said.
To
yes,
add
ma'am.
what Mr. Paradise said. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second on this motion?
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Vice Mayor Avila Vasquez. Now, we're going to go, each commissioner can speak once, and then commissioners are allowed one more opportunity to speak. So we will go down the list. I know Commissioner Sosa, you wanted to speak. Did you want to go ahead? And then Commissioner McCool.
Let's go ahead and we'll talk first. When this land is cleared, when we cut all the trees and the growth out, how do you plan on removing that? Is it going to be burned on site or is it going to be hauled away?
It'll either be chipped or hauled away.
Which one?
I'm not sure which one. It depends on, what the land development manager comes up with. I do know that the city has not been allowing open burning to occur on some of these projects. Not all of them, but some of them.
Because I know when I first took over as commissioner, when they were doing the clear cutting over at Cortlandt Square, I got tons and tons of calls regarding the burning and how all the ash was going 2-3 streets over into people's pools, houses, and everything. So I'd like to know that before I actually can even vote on this.
Yeah, we would not allow the open burning to occur on this site. It's too sensitive with regard to juxtaposition to existing residents.
Okay, now, is that something we can say we won't allow it, or is that through the?
You could add that into the development agreement to provide a high level of comfort that that would not occur.
Okay. My second question goes back to the Pioneer Agreement. Where exactly does the existing sewer line stop on Fort Smith that they're going to connect to?
From what I understand, the sewer line runs up the Cortland corridor.
So they're going to run it all the way up from Cortland, all the way up Fort Smith?
That is the plan as I understand it.
Okay. Now, my concern is there's a lot of houses on Fort Smith. I mean, where exactly is this sewer line going to go?
It will be accommodated within existing city right-of-ways.
City right-of-ways?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, all these houses that are going to be impacted, I know we said we have a city ordinance, but the state would supersede the city ordinance, would it, as far as hookups?
That is my understanding. I will defer to the lawyer on the Dillon rule.
Right now, our regulation says that we do not require folks to hook up unless they wish to. So that's where we sit. I am not aware of any area that is being where the state's going to come in. It's going to depend on the springs and a whole lot of other issues that I, couldn't possibly tell you what could happen in the future. I mean, I don't think if you look at a community long-term, and we have a lot of sensitive issues in the city, that if sewer is available and we don't come up with a program to help, I mean, I can't imagine the city wouldn't then want to help homeowners connect. But I also don't see a situation where they're going to be forced to.
Okay, so with this Pioneer Agreement, I would say, starting at Fort Smith, if we run from Cortland to Fort Smith all the way up to, say, Tradewinds, that's what, about 2 miles? So
I'm not sure it's that far, but it's a distance.
Now, is the Dollar General on Cortland, or I'm sorry, on Fort Smith, is that hooked up to sewer, or is that on septic right now?
That is on septic, but there is an agreement that when sewer becomes available, they will hook up.
Okay, so they will have to hook up, and
Yeah.
any other commercial properties along that?
Yeah, there's anticipation that would be
Okay.
part of the requirement.
Now,
yeah.
when we look at the Pioneer Agreement, you said the developer is currently going to pay to have that infrastructure put in for the sewer?
That's the way I understand these Pioneer agreements to work.
Okay. Now, that being said, what is the current cost? And if residents are forced to move over to sewer, how will that be impacted? Will it be impacted at current dollars, or will it be future dollars down the road? Say 5 years from now, we got to go to sewer. Will that be impacted at current value or at future value?
Future value, I'd imagine.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McCool?
Yeah, I just have questions or concerns regarding, I know that our staff is excellent at what they do, but there's 2 people or 2 families here that have standing but didn't receive notices. So I want that noted, that I find that troubling and I want to find out how many people have standing. 87 was said, right? And out of those 87, we do indeed have 2 families at least here, and possibly 2 more that left, right, because of the standing issue. And I just want to make sure that is as clarified.
Commissioner McCool, that was my concern as well, and I would like to ask for, do we send those out by certified mail?
They are, yes.
Okay, if they're sent by certified mail, you should have a list of who got sent those. So please update the commission and let us know if you have the addresses of the people that spoke here, and let us know, please, if they received letters or not. And please update that as soon as you find out, and send the commission an updated email. And please, as well, in some way, shape, or form, find a way to get a hold of the residents and let them know what went on. I'm sorry, Commissioner McCool, but that was my question as well.
No, that's quite all right, Madam Mayor. And I just have, for in the sake of clarity and transparency, our motion is very convoluted in the fact that there's been addition, right, to what the developer agreed to. Because I'm still not clear on the buffers that were agreed on. I'm still not clear on a lot of stuff. So I just want to know how we clean that up as to, you know, like the staff report, what we're voting on, what we're actually voting on as far as that goes. I mean, there's a lot of questions here that, you know what I'm saying, that, oh, we're adding this, this, and this, and so then you muddy the water as to, for me, as to what I'm actually voting on.
Can I muddy it one more time? Because I wanted to amend my motion to include. So I don't know if you can go over your list again, Ron, and I will clearly say it again with your list, because I'd like to also amend it to include no burning. Because I know you had said reduced density, 25-foot buffer, sidewalks.
Yeah.
What else did I miss?
That includes redesign of the project along the lakefront, okay? The addition of a white vinyl 6-foot-high fence along the property boundary where only a 10-foot wide buffer is afforded, and that fence will be located on the project side of the buffer.
Which is on the east or west? Are we talking
it would be
north,
on,
south, east, or west?
Yeah, it would be in the north, the south, and the east, okay? It would include directing staff to prioritize treating Monterey from Alex to East Normandy with sidewalks, and reduction of density, and then no open burning allowed.
Before we go any further with that, you're talking about sidewalks on Monterey?
Yeah.
On Alex?
Yeah, the Alex and Barger will be taken care of by the developer.
Okay.
And the city will be responsible for the Monterey addition as well.
Okay, so city's responsible for Monterey,
Yes, ma'am.
and the developer is responsible for Adler and Barger.
Alex and Barger.
I'm sorry, Alex and Barger.
And that's already included in the development agreement.
That's already included, so I don't need to mention that.
That's correct.
Well, so I'm not sure, Commissioner McCool, I think this was still your discussion, correct?
It is, and so there,
I just wanted to add, if we can look at trade winds and Adler for sidewalks. Because
henceforth there, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Henceforth ergo, it's turned into a new situation here with the additions and everything, and do we, I want to make sure this is crystal clear, and how do we delay this rewritten with all of this in here and not voting this evening based on it being so muddy? It's just not clear. We have a lot of direction here, and that's a very long motion to do that, and it's not clear, and I'm just, for the sake of clarity and thoroughness, asking how did they rewrite this, because I'm writing this down right now, and I just
What
want to
we're
make
going to
sure
do then is take a 5-minute break, and we will rewrite the motion. Is that okay with the commission? 5-minute break? 10-minute break, rewrite the motion? What do you prefer? No?
If I have to amend it, I prefer it to be clearly written as staff would be, and I believe
Okay,
that
then-
it's going to be the first and second that have to amend it, correct?
Okay, so,
Can we get through comments to see if there's anything else before we do?
Yes. yes, I have the vice mayor on the board. Commissioner McCool, were you done with your, because you're on there again right now? No, I'm out, Mayor. Okay, vice mayor and then Ramos.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. So are we voting, where did Ron go? Oh.
Madam Mayor, we were just discussing over here, the addition of the sidewalks at the city's responsibility would be a capital improvement item that will be budgeted separate from this rezoning.
Exactly.
I think we're
So that's
confusing.
that was my question,
I
Mr.
think we're
Peters.
confusing the motion by putting a capital improvement element into a motion involving a rezoning. I would recommend that you keep the motion strictly to the rezoning, and then after that, there will be a consensus that we will put in the budget for the necessary sidewalk that would be associated with this.
And that was my question to Ron. Are we voting to rezone, or are we voting to the specifications of how this community is going to be built? I mean, I thought this came afterwards.
This is, you are doing essentially both with all these PUDs.
Both?
Yeah, all these PUDs that the city has heard involve some level of design and standards for, infrastructure improvements are very common. And what we're simply asking with regard to the city is not to commit capital dollars, but to simply prioritize that these improvements, happen.
And could I just, based on Vice Mayor, part of this is also that's come out in this hearing is the difference between a use by right, which the entitlement that is currently.
Excuse me.
Okay.
We can't hear up here with the discussion in the audience. Thank you.
This property has a use by right by virtue of the zoning that they have that allows them to have, 96, I think, 98 homes. All right, so there's the issue of use by right. You guys say no, they go out there and they go build what they're entitled to. And this flip side is if you do a planned unit development, then you have a development agreement that is all these items that are coming up. You may not do this, you may not do this, you're giving us this, you're agreeing to do that. And so I think it's crystallizing that trade-off that you all need to take into consideration as you move forward with this. And so, Vice Mayor, I think that, yes, these kinds of issues where they're taking their density down, they're going to give you bigger buffers, they're going to do, if they do it by right, they build whatever the code says.
Yep.
And so I think that it really shows the differences here.
Thank you.
Okay, Marcia, do you need a recess to clarify the motion?
I know that the commissioner we've got it on the record. Ron's gone through the list. The staff report for the next hearing will be amended and include everything that is in your motion. I don't know, how we can make it clearer at this point. So,
thank you.
I mean, from a legal standpoint, I'm comfortable with having a complete picture of everything you all are wanting to add. Are you, Ron? Are you?
I am, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, Commissioner McCool, before I go to you, I just wanted to ask one question. We will not be incorporating any city capital dollars into this motion. However, the request for the no burn can be incorporated, correct? Okay. Commissioner McCool.
And Madam Mayor, my concern was, we were talking about, okay, a question. Is it in our future capital CIP for the next year or the year after? Has it already been discussed? Improvements on Monterey or trade winds? Has that been in the works?
We have had discussions. We just had a review of the transportation element of our budget capital improvement plan. Our recommendation going forward is we increase our paving from $500,000 to $1 million a year for the next 5 years. We do pavement management reviews in terms of we grade the roads, and the roads that are in the worst conditions are the ones that we give the highest priority. So it would not be possible for me to tell you right now that a specific road is going to be paved, but if the road is in truly as bad a shape as people indicate, it will probably rise up to the level to be paved.
And that's kind of my point, is that we, you know, the improvement there is predicated on the use that's going to be happening here due to this development. And I'm trying to take that into consideration when we talk about traffic. So because of the development coming out of there, does that move up on on CIP because we know we're going to be adding this much more traffic? What I'm trying to do is measure the city output, where we're at with that. If we were, you know, were we planning to do that already so that the two will work in harmonious balance if we approve this, and giving the people that live there assurances, because Marcia, you've done a great job explaining that they're entitled to develop this property as they see fit, without additional buffers, without any of the stuff that we have talked about, right? And so it's about what is the best for the city. So I'm trying to take into consideration the extra dollars or the CIP that we will put aside for the extra transportation to improve Monterey and trade winds, because we're talking about a large development, and just trying to make sure that everyone is taken care of. That's why I wanted that. That's why I wanted that clarified when we're talking about that.
Commissioner McCall, there are two elements when it comes to transportation with this project. The first one is the entitlements, that the developer will be paying impact fees. That will be a source of funding to do certain road improvements that are impacted by this development. The second one is our capital improvement element, and that's typically where we do the road paving projects and the like. So there's two different sources of funding for transportation and roadway improvement resulting from this project, and we will follow our normal course of action to ensure that the proper roads get paved and the proper sidewalks get installed.
And Madam Commissioner, I would also tell you, I don't think Ron or I would be embarrassed to ask the applicant about perhaps sharing some costs on those other roads too. Are you embarrassed, Ron?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, I mean, we can do that also and bring that back to the second hearing. Okay?
Commissioner Bradford?
Okay, well, this is what I was going to ask before my motion, actually. Many comments were made about tradesmen in Adler. And I guess when we start talking about kids in schools and bus stops, you know, that's one of the things that I was going to bring up. Is that something that our city's responsible to address, that corner and that bus stop, or is that something that we can ask an awesome developer to take care of when he's doing the subdivision?
We can definitely ask that and ask for some kind of cooperative assistance with regard to making these communities try and fit better together.
Because ultimately, I'm just going to say this and throw this out there, is the existing conditions that the residents currently just got up and spoke about, to me, didn't have much to do with our developer, but had to do with our city not taking care of what they currently have. And I apologize. You know, there's a lot of roadways, sometimes things slip, and this is, you know what, sometimes things happen for a reason. And hopefully, bringing this up, we can get staff to address the issues that you guys have brought up tonight and get them taken care of. Because to me, it's a priority, you know, and I'm sure to the rest of this commission, it's a priority, because nobody up here wants to see and hear that we have kids out at Tradesman and Adler. I'm sure we need lights. I'm sure we need a bus stop. Whatever we can do to make this area safer, I would like to see us do. And that's not anything on the developer. That's on the city. That's on us. And now that we're made aware of it, it's our responsibility to make sure that it's addressed. So those are, don't think that you guys came in vain. We did hear you. I see him feverishly taking notes, which generally means that, he's going to get it addressed. And if we can, in any way, work with them, I would love for us to do that. And Commissioner Sosa, you had mentioned something other than the burning. What was it? Did you mention two things on the burning? You said burning?
The burning, as far as not burning on site.
Right.
Having it hauled away. And the other had to do with the Pioneer Agreement for the sewer.
Okay. And, that's what brought my question up. See, I'm old. I gotta be knocked up sometimes. So if somebody, no, I didn't say that. I don't want to be knocked up. If somebody asks or wishes to be connected to sewer, or to the new system, are they able to? Because I have actually had residents that comes to me and say, listen, my septic's 20 years old, I need a new one, I don't want to spend $20,000. Do we have an incentive program or something that would allow them to be voluntarily connected to the sewer? I see the smirk.
I think you got my office bugged. We were just having a conversation earlier today. And one of the things we're talking about is putting a program together so that as sewer is made available, if someone wants to connect, instead of having a very heavy cost involved in connecting, whether it would be something that we would offer like a 20-year payment plan on their bills or any number of options in between. And we are going to look at that because it is going to become an issue.
Are there state grants available for residents? I know in Orlando, I had an individual tell me that they actually applied for a state grant to connect, and they were awarded a grant to connect to the city. Is that something that individuals, if we have it, that they're able to apply for a grant for that area?
We have looked at a couple of options in that regard. Mitch McCool was involved in one of them. The problem we're running into is the DEP has flagged us as having an ordinance that does not comply with state statute. So we have been unable to get grants, including this last legislative session. We were asking for, I believe it's $1 million for Lake Gleason and Lake Windsor to do surface water treatment, convert it to reclaim into the reclaim system. It was a unique way of dealing with flood issues while also providing reclaimed water. And the staff report for on the legislation noted that we do not have we have an ordinance that does not require connection, and therefore the funding got shut down.
Was everybody made aware of that?
Yes.
We were? Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, and then Commissioner King.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know when the new septic tanks were introduced, there was a grant. I don't know if they stopped it. But I also want to make very clear, and I want to hear from our lawyer so that everybody who's listening understands that the city will not force anybody to go on sewer. That comes from the state level. Am I correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor, you are correct. The city will not do that.
Thank you. So this project will not enforce or force any residents around that area to go on sewer.
But the difficulty is that because of the watershed, a lot of the, well, not a lot of the city, but a portion of the city.
A lot of the city.
Okay, a lot of the city is. The state, could come basically to the city and, try and, make folks have to connect. We've had this issue before, and there was a reason why that legislation was put in at the time, because the commission felt really strongly about not making people connect. So this is another one of these that we'll have to, we haven't had that issue because we haven't been putting sewer in where we had people in a connection situation. Now we face that potentially happening, and we're going to have to finesse this issue both from the standpoint of trying to find a way to help folks, so it's not, and the septic tanks are getting very expensive also if you have to replace, so, and also to be better stewards of the environment, all of those issues over time may make sewer very important. At that point, the commission, if they can have the means to help folks, may decide, to promulgate different legislation. These are things that all could happen.
But it will come from the state level. It will not come from the city level. I just want to make that clear.
No, let me make it
We're way
clear.
off track right now.
I just don't want people to walk away because we're talking about sewer and septic. That conversation snuck in there.
Vice Mayor, let me put clarity there, because the mayor knows that, because she's on a committee on the state level on this issue. We are in the Blueprint Basin, most of the city. There is what they call the priority focus area, which is basically everything west of Providence. And then there is the rest of the basin, which is everything basically from Providence out to close to 415, not quite that far. If you're in the priority focus area and your septic system fails, you're going to wish you had sewer nearby, because the systems that they're requiring are called advanced treatment. They used to be 12 to 15,000. Now they're 15 to 18,000 just to install it. Then the annual maintenance is between $500 and $800. You will gladly hook the sewer and pay the sewer bill instead of doing that if you're west of Providence. If you're east of Providence, it's more of a traditional septic system, but it's still expensive. And so what we have found is, I have friends that live in Deltona that lived on a lake. Their system failed, and they have what I call an Indian burial mound in the front yard. It's a big mound in the front yard because the groundwater table is so high, they literally had to elevate the septic system. They would have gladly hooked up to sewer if it was available. So right now, based on the ordinance we have in place, we cannot force people to connect today. It would take a separate action of this commission to rescind that ordinance or modify that ordinance. And if we ever got to that point, and even without that, we need to look at a methodology to where people can connect to our sewer system without a huge capital cost to themselves.
Commissioner King?
Okay, this has gone on way too long. If I'm not mistaken, there is a lawsuit that's still pending, and nothing can happen as far as the sewers go until that is taken care of. I believe I'm correct on that. I've spoken to our representative, our former representative, who said there is nothing down the pike in the state that will mandate people in Deltona or anywhere going on sewer, because if they mandate it, the state has to pay for it. And the cost is so overwhelming that the state can't pay for it. So we need to stop talking about whether or not people are going on the sewer or not when a pipeline comes down the road. We have an ordinance in place that says it's not going to happen now, and until the state does something different, we don't have to do anything different because everything is on hold. If your septic tank goes bad, you have to upgrade to a new one. And you just heard $15,000 to $18,000 and $500 to $800 a year to maintain it. Hopefully your system won't go bad, but as long as the lawsuit is in place, you can still get your septic tank the same one you put in when you bought your house. That one can still go in because they have not ruled on whether or not that new system must be put in. Okay, now let's stop talking about that and let's get back to this. Here's my issue. My issue is that developers, owners of property want to develop it. They know what they buy when they buy the property. They know the property is zoned for R1A. And we know that that our system is broken because we are allowing people to come in and put in an RPUD. We know that the system is broken, and we want to fix that. In this case, we have R1A property that's purchased, and the developer can build on that property right now. And he can put in 96 homes, 98 homes, whatever it is. And get you folks out there can correct me if I'm wrong. You knew that someday that land would be developed. But they expected it to be developed in some way that would be the same as what they have now. And I don't think there's a person out there that would care if they had a house, a piece of property backed up to their piece of property that was the same as theirs. And that's what they're going to get if they develop 98 houses. That's what they're going to get. So I'm calling for a vote. We've got a motion on the floor. We've got a second. Let's vote.
Commissioner King.
And as soon as you call for the vote, I'll be happy to start.
Commissioner King, I am just going to make 3 comments. No one else is on my board. Concerning the sidewalks on Adler, they are on the list under outside school buffers. Adler Drive from Tradewinds to Galahad, and it is $30,719. This is on your sidewalk list, so it's on there. It's not prioritized, so it's already been looked at, and the reason on it says speed. So it's already on the list, and in the next discussion, we're gonna talk about that, number 1. Number 2, I think everything else has been addressed by everyone up here. The only thing that I would talk about in the next comment on this, not on this particular vote, but in addition to sidewalks, street lighting in those areas where there are school zones. And I would expect that this development also has street lighting put in. Am I correct? And the last comment that I will make to Commissioner King's point, 98, 99 homes can go in without a plan, with just a road system that goes in, following our design standards, without managing any of this. Without this RPUD and our current design standards, what would be the stormwater mitigation? And what would be the sidewalk situation, and what would be the buffer situation if this does not get approved and they go in and do the standard 98, 6 to 9 homes?
They would afford the minimum code required 10-foot buffers.
So there would be a 10-foot buffer around the entire perimeter of the property.
Yes, ma'am.
Would they be required to put in sidewalks?
Yes.
Would they be required to put in street lighting?
They would. Let me clarify.
Internally.
Internally, yes, they'd have to put in sidewalks and street lighting.
Okay, and they would not be, what about their stormwater?
They'd still be required to afford stormwater.
So there would be a stormwater, and the last question I have, would they be required to be on sewer?
Yes.
So there's no change if they go ahead and build the 98 some lots that this is already zoned for. Sidewalks will be there, roads will be there, sewer will be there, and stormwater mitigation will be there.
Yes.
Okay. So we have gone through all of, you want to say something? Because you weren't on the list, and then we're done.
Just for clarity, Mayor, the sidewalks, I'm assuming that Ron is talking about is
Internal.
within the development, not outside.
That's
so
correct.
If they go the route of doing the 98 or 99, those other sidewalks that we're talking about are non-existent.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So to be clear, Mr. Paradise, the amenities that are being proposed for this RPUD are the outside sidewalks and a larger buffer.
and an internal trail system, a tot lot, the parking, the overflow parking, and access to the lake.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right.
And 30 extra.
The next is call the question. May we vote, please? On the motion, Commissioner McCool, you're clear on the motion?
Read the ordinance.
Do we need to
Yes, read the ordinance. Sorry. Thank you.
Ordinance number 07-2022, an ordinance of the City of Deltona, Florida, amending the official zoning map to rezone plus or minus 39.36 acres of land located on the east side of Alex Lane from City of Deltona single-family classification R1a to residential plan unit development RPUD, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. And the motion passes 4-3. And we will now move for second reading, second and final hearing, reading May 16th, 2022. And then we will have the clear motion. So there will be one more reading on this. We will now move on to item B, a public hearing, ordinance number 06-2022, amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Deltona to add section 11 property rights element to comply with Florida statute requirements at first hearing. Mr. Paradise.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the Commission, Ron Paradise, Community Services for the record. What we have here is a comprehensive plan text change, something that the city hasn't done in a while. What this is the addition of a property rights element. This is a result of a state mandate that was passed by the Florida legislature in the last legislative process. Basically, it establishes well-known property rights procedures and just recognizes that property rights are important. This does follow a template that was created by the state, and most of the local governments out there are using this exact template here to add to their comprehensive plans. By the way, there is a sanction for a local government that does not do this, which means that they are not allowed to amend their comprehensive plans in any way until this property rights element is updated to their comp plan.
Okay, Mr. Paradise, you have clearly stated this. Do we have any members of the public that wanted to speak on this item?
No, Mayor.
We'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. Do we have a motion and a second? Let's see, Commissioner Bradford?
Ron, can we go over something quick? I'm sorry. Before I
that's
make the
okay.
motion.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
Yes,
so it
ma'am,
says
of
the
course.
following rights shall be considered a decision-making process. We currently have statutes on the books about, fence, property lines, and all that, right?
Yes.
So it says the right of a property owner to physically possess and control his or her interest in the property, including easement, leases, or mineral rights.
Mhm.
What does that do to the existing ordinances that are on the books that may state, hey, a individual who has a fence or who wants to put a fence up has to have XYZ setbacks and all that? None of that needs to be in here, or does it?
No, a local government still has the ability to regulate, fencing types or heights. It doesn't mean that a local government still can't regulate certain land use and land development activities.
Okay, yeah, because I think we currently have, the ordinances on the books, and that's why I was reading this, I'm a little confused, because according to this, it's not specifying, hey, you have XYZ setback and that. So this does not supersede our local.
No, it does
Okay.
not.
Okay, thank you. I hereby move to approve ordinance number 06-2022, amending the comprehensive plan of the city of Deltona to add section 11, property rights element to comply with the Florida statute requirements at first reading, and hereby direct staff to transmit this ordinance number 06-2022 to the Department of Economic Opportunity and to the Volusia Growth Management Commission, and schedule a second and final reading by May 16, 2022. The acting city manager has the authority to make corrections of Scribner errors and the like.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Commissioner King. We've been through the public comment portion. Would you please read the ordinance, Marcia? And then we will go ahead for a vote.
Yes, ma'am. Ordinance number 06-2022, an ordinance of the City of Deltona, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan to add section, is that it? Yeah. Section 11, property rights element to comply with the Florida statutes requirements, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. May we vote, please? Motion passes 7-0. Next item is item C, a public hearing, ordinance number 05-2022, amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Deltona, amending the capital improvements element by providing for the replacement of the capital improvement project sheets at second and final hearing. Mr. Paradise?
Ron Paradise, Community Services. This was heard and approved on first reading by the City Commission on March 21st, 2022. Nothing has changed from then to this product here with the capital improvements element. So we're recommending that this be approved by the City Commission and forwarded to the Department of Economic Opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the public signed up to speak on this item?
No, Mayor.
Then it closes the public comment portion of this hearing. Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions on this when I look through it and I go through the line items. What park building renovations are we going to do at Campbell Park for $200,000?
Everything, what you're reading from is the support documentations from excerpted directly from the city's 2021 budget. Excuse me. I'm sorry. But yeah, I do not have a handle on the exact upgrades that 200,000 would buy.
Okay. Now, Mr. Peters, all these park projects totaling over $1 million, are we still going through with them?
Sir, we will be coming back with a budget amendment later this spring, dealing with all of our park projects. They will be modified, but I believe what Ron is trying to do is we have a statutory requirement to update based on our current budget.
So just to, we're always behind. The way the state requires us to do this, you're not looking at the future, you're looking at what's already been approved from a budgetary standpoint.
All right, thank you.
Okay, sure.
You good, Commissioner? Okay. Commissioner McCool and then Commissioner Bradford.
Yep, short comment on this is that LOS is a bunch of hooey here on schools, and I just want to notate that the note to Tallahassee that there needs to be improvements done. Again, this is not done at the city level nor the school board level. This is done at the state level. We're not taking into consideration the teacher shortages, and we are short staffing our children's future. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Bradford?
Yes, Madam Mayor is going to make a motion. We had mentioned in the last, when we were voting to add, do we want to move up the CIP for the city sidewalks now, or didn't he mention he wanted to?
This is for the...
This is last year's, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I hereby move to adopt ordinance. Right, okay, thank you. That's what I thought you said. Okay, the ordinance number 05-2022, approving the 2021-2022 capital improvements element, updated by providing for the replacement of the capital improvement project sheets at second and final reading, and hereby direct staff
to send the CIE update to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. The acting city manager has the authority to make corrections of scrivener errors and the like.
Second.
Okay, properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Commissioner Ramos. May we vote, please? Oh,
Do you want me to read the ordinance?
Ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Ordinance number 05-2022. An ordinance of the City of Deltona, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Deltona by amending the capital improvements element, providing for the replacement of the capital improvement project 5-year schedule, finding conformity with state statutes, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. May we vote, please? And the motion passes 7-0. Next item is D, and we have moved that to the first meeting in May. We'll move to item E, public hearing, resolution number 2022-06, request for approval of the 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25 SHIP Local Housing Assistance Plan, the LHAP. Mr. Paradise.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ron Paradise, Community Services. Resolution number 2022-06 deals with the city's triennial update to the local housing assistance plan. This is another mandate the city as a SHIP entitlement community must undertake. And what the city did this year with regard to updating the LHAP was increase the owner-occupied rehabilitation strategy from 40,000 to 60,000 a unit up to. And this increase is warranted to address the cost of construction. Plus, some of the houses that we're seeing have, are in pretty, difficult shape based on years of deferred maintenance. Also, the next thing that was done was to increase the amount of purchase assistance to $60,000 for very low income applicants, $55,000 for low income applicants, and $50,000 for moderate income applicants. The intent there is to address the escalating real estate cost nowadays that, we all are aware of that trend. The disaster assistance, and this is a strategy that is used to address hurricane deductibles or perhaps helping people out in the aftermath of a disaster. The assistance has been increased from $15,000 to $25,000. And a lot of that is driven by some of the costs of the roofs that we're seeing nowadays. Also, a very notable change is the city has proposed a new strategy. And that is known as the acquisition, rehabilitation, construction. And this strategy includes the city's obtaining properties or dwelling units for the purpose of rehabilitating existing dwellings or constructing new ones. This will take the form of what is known in affordable housing parlance as a community land trust, where the city would hold on to the title to the underlying land and the owners would own the house itself. And then the city would dictate how and who that house could be sold to when it transfers to maintain affordability. So this is kind of an introduction to a new strategy. It's going to take a while for it to be developed, and it's going to probably require bringing a partner in eventually to help manage what happens and how to administer the Community Land Trust Program. I'd be happy to field any questions y'all may have.
Commissioner McCool?
Only one question. Ron, did we have any applicants this last year for special needs? I know that they are priority, right? Did we have any applications for special needs?
It's not unusual that we do get applications for special that fit that special needs category.
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot recount any exact ones at this juncture.
And we're doing outreach still with this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just didn't know that our applications were so overwhelming that we, you know what I mean, had to stop doing the outreach portion of it. Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. If there are no questions, I'd like to make a motion. I hereby move to approve resolution number 2022-06, adopting the City of Deltona 2022-2023, 2023-2024, and 2024-2025 Local Housing Assistance Plan, and hereby direct the plan be transmitted to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for review. The acting city manager has the authority to make corrections of scrivener's errors and the like.
Second.
Properly moved by Vice Mayor Avila Vasquez, seconded by Commissioner Bradford. Before we move on, I have some questions. The Land Trust, how much does this bind us if we vote yes on this today for changes?
It doesn't bind us. It gives us an option to use up to $200,000 to help establish this program.
So when we look at establishing this program, is that done internally or does that come to the commission?
That would be done internally, and anything that's above $25,000 would come to the commission for review and authorization.
What would be done internally before the authorization for over $25,000?
Probably spending money on administration.
Under $25,000?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
I just have major concerns with that moving forward. I mean, when you're saying that we are going to own the land and decide who to sell it to, and you're saying that the people are going to still live in the house and kind of own the home, but we own the land, and then we have to bring in a partner, that's very concerning to me.
There are a lot of moving parts, there's no doubt about it.
And I can't support anything like that without future or without a deeper dive into what that means for the city. It's very subjective, and that's problematic for me.
Understood.
Commissioner Ramos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and that's pretty much a concern that I have when we talk about land trusts. I know it's a conversation that's happening, not just here in the county and statewide. I do know that there's someone in the city who's working with a partner. But my concern is that as a city that we don't become landlords. I think that opens a Pandora's door, and we need to be very cautious. I mean, I can tell you some of the projects that I'm working outside of the city is normally the cities would give the scatter lots to a nonprofit, that then that nonprofit in return then can get a developer, an affordable housing developer to work in that aspect. But the whole thing with land trusts is, as a city, it just concerns me that we become a landlord, and that could be very challenging.
And I will assure you that nobody wants to put the city in that position. And that's part of the reason, or some of the rationale for providing the ability and recognizing the need to bring in a partner on this project.
Commissioner King?
Hey, Ron, my question is, how do we come up with this, with the new strategy? Was that come up, did we do that internally? Or did the state say we had to do something different? How did this come about?
This came about internally, and this was something that we had broached with the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee as well. And, you know, there seems to be, on behalf of the committee, you know, an interest to look at this, you know, harder and see if that's something that could help address affordable housing needs within the city.
You good?
Yeah, I guess I'm good. I'm not really in favor of this. I think we need to look a little bit harder at it.
Vice Mayor and then Commissioner Sosa.
Thank you, Mayor. Ron, am I correct to say that we are currently sitting on a land trust property?
I think that could be, looked at that way based on the ownership of this. I think the state owns the underlying lands, or the school district, and then the city uses this facility that's on land it does not own.
So it really belongs to Daytona State College, am I correct?
I'm not sure. I can't remember what the ownership is. I think it's the state.
Okay, and do we know who manages this property for them? Do we have any idea about that?
They manage it, but I'm not really sure. There's a lot of partners, including Daytona State, the school district, the county for environmental management purposes as well.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I mean, going forward with this, I'm okay with the increases in the SHIP program and the funds to help, residents get into houses. But I completely agree with the mayor. I think the land trust, we need to stay away from that, especially when we have to bring in third parties to help manage it. To me, I agree the city shouldn't be in that type of business.
Okay, to answer your question, Vice Mayor, the owners for the property appraiser is the Volusia County School Board, the State of Florida TIITF Properties, and the State of Florida TIITF. So it is the school board and the State of Florida that jointly own this property. So that is the answer there. And seeing as how we have a motion by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Bradford. This is a resolution, correct? So we don't have to read it?
Mayor,
Yes.
I have public.
Do we have anyone in the public that wanted to speak? Yes.
Ms. Brandy White, please.
Brandy White, Deltona. I also was very taken aback when I read 4. So I'm going through it and I'm like, okay. The biggest thing I just heard was 200,000 K to be set aside for number 4. Why isn't that number in here? I saw every other number in every paragraph, but this one left off a price tag. So I didn't appreciate that very much. Secondly, like you guys' concerns, not only with the fact that you would be landowners and landlords, but there's not a lot of guidelines or information, not only to you that I can tell, but to us in the public, that tells us what exactly is considered affordable. Where are the guidelines when it talks about facilitating the affordable housing choices? And it mentioned, and I could be wrong, but it seems like there was already a partner in mind, so I was curious who that partner is. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Closes the public comment portion of the hearing. So, Mr. Paradise, you heard the question. Do we have any other clarification on that, the 200,000?
What's considered affordable is prices that people or household within 80% of the area median income can afford. Okay, and that's just based on household size and whatnot. With regard to a partner, we do not have anybody in mind.
Thank you. Commissioner King? And Commissioner Bradford?
I'm just wondering if we can modify the motion to omit number 4, because the other 3 areas are, I think everybody may be good on the other 3. I don't know if that's something.
Maybe
that
this will help, Madam Mayor. I was going to ask if I
work
could
for you,
rescind my
Ron?
second.
Mr.
amend it.
Paradise, this has to be transmitted to the state?
Yes,
Assuming
and-
there's a deadline?
Yes, and you do not, you can remove item 4.
We can?
Yes, ma'am.
You can, okay.
You can, yes, if
So,
you like.
Vice Mayor, you made the motion, Commissioner Bradford seconded the motion. Is there any desire to remove that item? And if not, then we'll vote on this, and if it fails, we'll have another motion. Yes, ma'am.
Ron, can this be brought back later on with the land lease?
Yes, we do have the ability to
Or land trust.
revisit this sometime in the future. And perhaps, some sort of recommendation sometime in the future, from the AHAC may be, helpful, since we're going to be talking to the AHAC here sometime in the future about community land trust. And when I say sometime in the future, there are some state mandates that the AHAC is required to undertake and complete.
Okay, I don't have a problem removing number 4, and I'll make the motion again. I just want everyone to know that those who are not really informed about AHAC, this number 4 is a huge help for families who cannot afford to purchase the current price homes. And that's, I'm sure, is why Ron put this in here. And this land trust has been a discussion for many, many months, very famous out in Orlando and other areas. So this is put here to assist those families who cannot afford the prices that are going on for sale of homes, like teachers, firemen, and any other person who, who's working a minimum wage salary. But I'll make my motion again. I hereby move to approve the resolution that I mentioned before, removing number 4.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question before I make my
Yes.
second? Trying to think of the best way to word this, Ron. We have to submit this report to the state by a certain time, and I believe also to not lose SHIP funding, and I don't want to confuse one with the other, so make sure I am not, please. In order for us to not lose SHIP funding, we did have to have in place a affordable housing plan, correct, in order to not lose that SHIP funding. If this is removed from this, are we going to lose part of our SHIP funding?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Then I second my motion.
Okay, so the motion, are you good, Joyce, with the motion being amended by the Vice Mayor and Commissioner Bradford? We've gone through public comment. Now we will go ahead on the revised motion, removing item number 4, correct, Mr. Paradise?
That's correct.
Okay. It's a resolution, so we don't have to read it, so may we vote, please? And the motion passes 7-0. Next item is old business. We have none. Next item, number 8, new businesses. 8A, request for approval of new agreement for events manager Joe Hearn Events.
Good evening, Commissioners. Stacy Kifalo, Deputy City Manager. What is before you is an update to Joe Hearn's agreement. You actually did approve it in October, and then we made a slight change, which was the 10% revenues commission that Joe would receive would exclude revenues from Encore Catering or other business affiliates directly related to Joe Hearn Events. That was the only change that we made to the agreement.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Commissioner
Say
King?
that again?
That was the only change. That's the only reason this is being brought back to you, because we made a change to the language in the agreement that you all approved in October.
Okay. All right.
You good?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
Move to approve the agreement with events manager for the center at Deltona, and the acting city manager has the authority and to make corrections and severances, errors, and the like.
Second.
Okay, motion properly moved by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner McCool. Are there any members of the public that wanted to speak on this item?
Yes, ma'am. Brandy White, please.
Thank you.
Brandy White, Deltona. Just quick question. I see that this was a change from something that was approved in October. So the question is, since October, have we been paying 10% on his own revenues directly affiliated with him? And second is, do we have a cost differential between the two of what was and what will be? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment?
Mayor.
That closes the public comment portion of the hearing. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Ms. Kifalo, did you have an answer for the question? Have we been?
Yes, we have been. We have been paying that 10%. It's actually not a significant change. So the dollar value, I don't have an exact for you, but it's really not a significant change.
Is this a change in principle alone for optics?
Some of it, yes.
Is that why that was brought forward?
Yes, and Mr. Hearn did agree to it.
It's a shame. Mr. Hearn brings a lot of events to this city. He brings credibility to this city and to the center. The motion on the floor, and we have a second. There's nothing to read. May we vote, please? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Hearn, for your continued service to Deltona. I personally appreciate you, and I think this commission does as well, for what you've brought to the city and to the center and your reputation around the entire area. Item B, request for approval of resolution number 2022-07 in the Florida Department of Transportation Local Agency Program, LAP Program Agreement for the Providence Trail Doyle Road to Alexander Avenue South Segment Project in the amount of $750,685. Mr. Danskin, good evening. Long night, sorry.
From Alexander to...
Is your mic on, Steve?
Is it on? It's, there, I can
thanks.
bring it closer. Providence Trail from Alexander to Doyle Road has been designed and permitted with the exception of the right-of-way permit from Volusia County. But we're at the point now where we need to pass this resolution to encumber the funds for the final construction. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners? Because I do. Commissioner Bradford?
I'll make a motion.
You can go ahead and make the motion. I'll ask my question after.
I move to approve resolution number 2022-07 and the LAP agreement for the Providence Trail Doyle Road to Alexander Avenue South Segment Project in the approximate amount of $750,685. The acting city manager has authority to make corrections to Scrivener errors and the like.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Commissioner King. Let's see. Do we have anybody else? Commissioner Sosa.
Yeah, I think this initially got started before I got on here.
Yes,
so
sir.
If you could explain exactly what we're going to do, because if I remember, we had, when it was discussed, it was going up Providence on the left side of the road. There's going to be a walk and some workout equipment here and there. What exactly is the end game here that you plan on doing?
Well, ultimately, it was intended to provide a multi-use trail to connect down to the rail trail and the area down by Thornby Park and connect it up into town north of Doyle Road. There have been various plans throughout the series that would take it all the way up here to the north end. But we've got some right-of-way issues up here, so that section has been canceled. But we're also looking at other ways of connecting these trails around the city to make them more user-friendly and convenient. But you're right, this one did start out on the the east side of Providence. We ran into right-of-way issues and constructability issues, ADA accessibility requirements, and then ran through a number of different scenarios and then ended up moving it over to the west side of the right-of-way.
Do you by any chance just have a diagram so it gives me a better sense of where I'm at?
I
didn't see
I don't
one
have
in
one
here.
with me, no.
Okay, because what I remember seeing was going up Providence Boulevard, and that was multiple years ago, I think. Is there any way to get that diagram of what you plan on doing with it?
We can certainly get that to you tomorrow.
All right, I appreciate it.
But again, this is from Doyle Road to Alexander, which is approximately a mile, and on the west side of Providence.
West side of Providence?
Mr.
Essentially
President,
widening the
If
existing.
I could jump in here. The original trail alignment was on the east side. We had power poles. The biggest problem we had is we had a series of 3 driveways that are very deep. In order to put the trail in, we literally were going to have to rebuild the driveway all the way to the garage. Under LAP funding, we cannot buy right-of-way out of LAP money. And it was going to be so difficult, we're doubtful that the property owners would even work with us. So that's when we started looking at putting the trail over on the other side of the road. And even that had challenges, but nothing like the east side road did.
So everything you've got now, if this was approved, everything should fly? Is it still going to be the same layout of trail with workout equipment? Or what exactly is it you plan on building there?
It's just the trail.
Just the trail?
Right.
The workout equipment, sir, was on Deltona Boulevard. That was going to
Right.
be that thing right there.
So
This is
that's
on
not getting
that's
crossed over?
No, it's totally different.
Totally different. So basically, we're building a mile of trail?
Pretty much, yes.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Danskin, how are we looking with getting that right-of-way access from Volusia County?
Right now, it's up in the air. The county presented us with an agreement that we were going to bring to the last city commission meeting. However, it was decided that there were too many unresolved issues with taking over the right-of-way. So we informed the county that we would like to proceed with getting the right-of-way permit to construct the trail. However, that's on hold as well.
So basically, this started in 2018. It's been budgeted every year. We got nothing so far. And now I understand moving from one side to the other, it had to be done. There's no way you can get those driveways were way too steep, and it's even a problem for the homes. So now we're having a right-of-way issue with Volusia County on Providence Boulevard.
There are a couple of areas, discrete areas, where we have what they call clear zone violations. The trail, because of the proximity of the right-of-way, brings the trail closer to the paved roadway than they would like. They grant variances to themselves and to other agencies for these clear zone violations on a fairly regular basis. The other issue that the county engineer has brought up is that at some point, additional travel lanes are going to be needed on Providence. And as he stated it to me, at that point, the trail will be in the way. We will have to acquire right-of-way, and in order to reestablish the trail at that point, sometime in the future.
So my comment to that is, speaking with the county probably about 2 years ago, I was informed it would be at least 10 years before they could even accumulate the property that they needed to widen the road and so forth. And if you'll look at Providence Boulevard, on the side that they're moving it now, there's a sidewalk the entire way up there. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have you already have a sidewalk. What's the width? 5 feet?
8 feet, I believe.
8 feet of sidewalk that you already have now. So what's the width of the trail going to be?
12 feet.
So you're adding an extra 4 feet. So even if they widen the road, they're going to have to rip up all that sidewalk, they're going to have to remove all the mailboxes, and they're going to have to accumulate, especially the property on the corner of Doyle and Providence, and move those huge cement poles. So, I mean, we're looking at the minimum, unless money rains down from the sky, for anything of Providence is widened in that area, a minimum of 10 years.
Madam Mayor, if I could jump in here. One of the two big issues that we have with this whole situation is the part of the agreement from the get-go was that they were going to remove the mailboxes and put in gang mailboxes. That hasn't been done yet. Now, part of the problem is the Postal Service. They've agreed in concept, but this hadn't happened. With regard to the clear zone that Mr. Danskin talking about, when he informed me of that, I told him to go take a picture up here at Providence and Highland because the sidewalk is at the edge of pavement. There is no separation. There's at least as much traffic there, if not more, than what we're talking about at Doyle. Third element is before that road is ever widened, they're going to have to widen the part of Providence on the other side of Doyle. There is a concrete retaining wall at the
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. There is, I believe, a lift station down there, and there's a lot of wetlands. So I think we will all be dead and buried before any kind of widening would ever occur on Providence, if ever. So I'm not, we're having these discussions. I think in the end we will prevail. I would recommend that we go ahead and move forward with this, and hopefully it'll put a little bit of pressure on the county to come forward and be reasonable.
So it's my understanding that the mailboxes are not in the design plan. The mailbox removal is not in the design plan.
They are not part of this project, no. That's a condition of us taking over the right-of-way. And the U.S. Postal Service...
So how can you even put a 12-foot trail there and have mailboxes in front of it? When the mailman, no offense to the mailman, anybody listening, the post office, but that road is entirely rutted beyond belief, and it's part of the stormwater problem when you see all of that in there. So how can we actually even attempt to put a 12-foot trail there and have mailboxes there, and the mailman's going to be on Providence dropping the mail off, causing a traffic backup? Am I wrong here? I mean, I hate to belabor this, but this is the bane of my existence, this trail. I was so supportive of this, and it has been in the budget for millions of bucks since 2018. And now we got the core thing is Volusia County wants us to take over Providence. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then.
Now, the Postal Service or the postmaster is very interested in relocating the mailboxes, but there is a fairly long and involved process that they have to go through with notification and verification of disability for the people who can't or who claim that they can't access the adjacent streets, things like that.
And I understand all that, and that's a process that has to be done, but this has been budgeted in our thing for 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 4 years. And still we're nowhere with mailbox removal, and again, my issue is a 12-foot trail, where's the mailman gonna ride? He's either gonna ride on the trail every day and drop mail off there, or he's going to be dropping mail off and stopping traffic on Providence. It's a problem. That's just one of my concerns. The other concern is you're running on time situation here with DOT.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we getting an extension? Is that what this is?
No, this gets us into lockdown, gets our project.
What about the
closer
extension
to
for the
lockdown.
cost, for the funding? Because I know we had a tight deadline.
And that's what we're trying to meet with this requirement here, this resolution.
So this is basically,
One of the steps.
so
that
we don't
needs
lose
to
the
be
funding from
completed.
DOT.
Correct.
Clearly. We don't approve this, funding goes bye-bye and the trail croaks. Am I right?
Yes.
Commissioner Sosa.
Yeah, I just had a question where the $750,000 was coming from. It said transportation. Is that city's transportation fund?
Yes.
So just to help clarify that, the DOT, did they give us the 750,000?
They're more or less.
Are they going to match grant it?
They're more or less matching, yes, sir. They're providing 735,000. We're putting in 750,000.
So it's a $1.5 million project that's basically going to bleed. So with that 750,000, if we already have an 8-foot sidewalk over in that area, and we're going to extend it by 4 foot, if it's in the transportation fund, could we not take that money and resurface some of the roads in Deltona?
I believe that would be your call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bradford?
Mayor, you brought up some real valid points that I guess I need some more clarification on. I mean, I don't see doing something just so we don't lose funds. You know, I have grave concerns that the county does take it over. We're throwing bad money, good money after bad. If we do not do this, we lose the funding, but are we able to apply for grant funding if we decide to use it in another area?
I believe it would give us a black eye and jeopardize future funding through the TPO and DOT.
We're going to get a black eye because we waited 5 years on a project? Really? I'm like, say, they should have a black eye for taking 5 years to do anything, get this going through. I mean, we're going to have a black eye? I would like to know from somebody who's on the TPO what their thought is on this project.
Ooh, baby, right
This-
there.
Bang!
This project, and I go back to what Commissioner King always talks about in reference to making sure things this has been in the limelight. It started in 2018, but prior to that, it was before that on the pipeline. So at this point in time, it's really on our side. It's not necessarily the TPO waiting for any progress. It's been us. And if we don't proceed with this, then you can bet for sure, yes, we go back to the back of the line. Yes.
Madam Mayor, if I can jump in here. 2018, yes, the project was started. It was 2020 when the project was transferred over to Public Works. It has been an extremely difficult project for us. As I said, it was originally intended to go on the eastern side of the road. Mr. Danston and I even at one point contemplated moving it up to Alexander
Off of
going
Doyle.
east off of Providence down to Doyle. Problem was, once we got to Doyle, we couldn't get anywhere. But it was actually a cheaper alternative to go that route. But like I said, the Doyle end of it was a problem. So we have tried our level best to make a good project out of this. You know, if it wasn't for the factor of the DOT and the TPO and the LAP program and all that, I would probably recommend that we just let it slide, because we just had a meeting today about our transportation program and future LAP type projects, such as shoulder widening on Elkham from Providence to Howland and beyond. The problem is we got so many wetlands that the wetland mitigation to put in a trail through there that would have maybe marginal impact. And what we decided today, we were going to set that aside, start a process of reevaluating our trail path system throughout the city, inclusive of talking to Duke and Florida Power about using their transmission easements for trail systems so that we can get across the city quicker, have better connectivity. As it was indicated earlier tonight about, you know, the trail being close to the schools, that's been an emphasis for quite some time. We're getting toward the end of that program. As the mayor indicated, there's a list of sidewalks on the rezoning application that's related to that. So candidly, unless Steve tells me I've lost my mind, I'm not sure that we shouldn't just punt on this and just tell the DOT that it's not a viable project any longer.
Well, that was my question, wasn't just to kill it, was, is it, and you'll know this, you know, Commissioner Ramos more than I will, but if we approve it now to keep it in the projects, is there a way that we can reevaluate the location? And if we move location, is that going to totally kill us out of it and go back to the starting board, the drawing board? So like, you know, our acting city manager said, if we remove it, if we approve it now to keep it active, but then over the next few months, the staff evaluates that there's a better place to do this trail, what happens at that point?
We would need to go back to TPO and reapply.
We'd still be going back to the drawing board? Okay.
So my question is this: if we approve this funding tonight, how committed are we? And, I mean, you're still looking at the right-of-way use permit.
That's the only issue.
And if that does not go through or takes another 3 or 6 months, is the option to can this project in 3 months there? Or once we do this, we're tied in?
Madam Mayor, the discussion that we have had with regard to the right-of-way utilization permit from the county is, if the staff is not willing to work with us, we will come back to you all for a resolution for a waiver from the county council to override the staff decision. We have ample evidence throughout the city where the county has approved far less clear zone than what we're talking about here. And that would be an option that would be on the table.
So my dilemma is this: that area needs improvement. The area needs improvement. The road is a problem, not the road itself, it's been repaved, but the county rights of way are bad. The rutting is bad. The sidewalk is bad. And this is a chance to really improve that section of our city that is in a lot of need. Because we all really know that Providence isn't going to be widened anytime soon. It's just not going to happen. So that whole area would benefit, and that's why I've been supportive of this project, from having this trail there, because it does connect down to Thornby, it connects down to Lakeshore Drive, it connects down to that whole area. And a lot of people use the sidewalks, but they don't use them that much on Providence because it's very uneven and it's it's just bad. Like the whole maintenance there is bad on the county's right-of-way. It's just really bad. And we don't have the power, unless it's through this trail, to make those improvements in any way, shape, or form for that portion of the city. We just don't have it. So, I mean, I've always been super supportive of this. It's just frustrating that it's taken this long. And the only thing we can do is try to get the right-of-way use permit, and if that fails, do like what the acting manager said. If the commission wants to continue with this, and if the whole thing fails, the money's not lost. Am I right? I mean, like if we don't get the right-of-way use permit, we don't get that, and we go through this, we can always decide to scrap it, right?
Until we get under contract with a contractor, yes. We've spoken with DOT and we've spoken with TPO, let them know the difficulties that we're having. Lockdown was supposed to be today. However, we were informed by DOT that there's some cushion built in there, and if we can get the right-of-way permit issue resolved in a timely manner, then we should be able to keep moving forward without any undue harm.
And the last comment I had, and I apologize for belaboring this, but the last comment I have is Providence is a busy road. And if you extend the trail up to Alexander, you're really going up over that hill. That's a big issue. So it helps. It would help in that respect. So I don't know.
And it would be an ADA compliant.
And that would help as well, because none of the rest of it is. I mean, maybe it is in spots, but for the most part, it's not. So we have a motion, Commissioner Bradford, correct? Commissioner King, public comment?
Brandy White, please.
Brandy White, Deltona. I am just shell-shocked at the price tag. That's like one whole year of Skippy. That's a lot of money for 1 mile-long trail. And if you're saying that that's just our portion, and so if you add those together, 1.5 million for a trail, I would love to see a breakdown somewhere of these costs that are a little more in-depth, because to me, that is absolutely insane to even think we would spend 1.5 million tax dollars, because on both sides, it comes from tax dollars, on a trail that only goes a mile. Absolutely insane, especially when you're hearing all these road bumps. If I recall, in 2018, this did come up for discussion, and some of these issues were brought forward and ignored. So I'm not surprised that there's still issues. I mean, if we haven't resolved the right-of-way issues and the mailbox issues in 4 years, even 2 if you go with 2020, then maybe this isn't as such a necessity as we think, and we should just go for option 3 and put the money where it actually needs to go and not just a mile-long trail. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is that it? Closes the public comment portion of the hearing. And the last comment I would like to make on that, the issue on the other side, the opposite side of Providence, is exactly what the acting manager said. There was a problem with 3 driveways, and there's no way we would have been able to do that there at all. So that's why it was moved to the other side. So I understand that aspect when engineering came through with that. But anyway, enough of that. We have a motion and a second. May we vote, please? And the motion passes 6-1. Let's give this one last shot, guys. See what happens. Thank you. Item C, request for approval of participation in the state of Florida settlement with CVS, Teva, and Allergan in the opioid litigation. Marcia?
Okay, you have the documents in front of you. This is, Skip's really been handling this. He's recommending that you guys approve the settlements here. And it goes through, this is the city would participate in the state of Florida settlements with CVS, Teva, and Allergan in the opioid legislation. And it goes through the allocations and does anybody have any more specific questions? It's pretty straightforward there.
Bradford?
I move to approve participation in the state of Florida settlements with CVS, Teva, and Allergan in the opioid litigation.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bradford, seconded by Commissioner King. Is there any member of the public that signed up to speak on this?
Mayor.
Seeing none, we will go ahead and vote, please. Motion passes 7-0. Next item up, public forum. Is there anyone signed up to public forum?
I have 2 names. I believe they both left, but Richard Bellick, Matt Johnson. That closes public comments.
Okay, closes public forum. Comments on consent agenda items, or anybody that signed up for comments on consent agenda items?
No, Mayor.
Okay, that closes that consent agenda. Tonight we have A, request approval of a purchase order with Atlantic Pipe Services for the lining of approximately 186 lineal feet of stormwater pipe located adjacent to 2365 Newmark Drive, piggybacking on an active Brevard County contract in the amount of $33,657. Item B, request approval of continuing service contracts with Ardemont and Associates, Natick Engineering, and Professional Service Industries for on-call geotechnical engineering services. Request of approval of continuing service contracts with CPH, Half Associates, and Mead & Hunt for on-call civil engineering services. Those are the 3 items. And Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If there's no objection, I move to approve consent agenda item A, B, and C.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Ramos. Who seconded? Was that you, Commissioner McCool?
Yes.
Seconded by Commissioner McCool. May we vote, please, on items A, B, and C? And the motion passes 7-0. Next up, special reports and requests, commissioners.
Nope.
Anybody? City attorney? No? Mr. Peters?
I just have one item, ma'am. We have some bad news for the city. We received a resignation from our Parks and Rec Director, Mr. Ryan Reckley. He is taking a position, I believe, in Palm Beach. He's moving back to home. It's a good move for him. It's going to be all lost. He's going to be here until May 19th, so if you get a chance, I would wish him well. And that's it for me.
Thank you, sir. City Commission, Commissioner Sosa, any comments tonight?
Yeah, I just had a question for Mr. Peters. Do you have any update? I know I had asked you about the Senior Advisory Board a few times, and you're going to give me an answer as to why it was dissolved out of nowhere. If you could give me an update on that.
I can get you that update, and I'll send it to all the commissioners. I'll get the background on what occurred with that, but I do not have an answer right now.
Okay, because it seemed from a lot that I found that there were meetings, and then all of a sudden it just stopped with nothing.
I'll find out, and I will report to all of you.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Bradford? Commissioner Ramos?
No comments, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner McCool? No comment, Madam Mayor. Commissioner King, come on now.
You got 6 minutes, King.
Who wins after that?
And so, let's see if I can get us to there.
I knew this was going on.
You were 11.
Oh, I was 11. No, I wasn't. Oh, forget that. Okay, I just wanted to say the American Legion on the 8th of April did their Law and Order Awards ceremony and luncheon. I want to thank the members of the commission who went to that meeting, to that luncheon, and were there to witness the first responders of the year for the American Legion get their awards. Thank you so much for being there. And I just want to put out that, things like that the American Legion does is open to the public. And we try to advertise that as best we can. So in the future, those kind of events, Law and Order, Four Chaplains Memorial Ceremony and the like, they're always open to the public. And so with that, I say thank you, and everybody have a good night, what's left of it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, very quickly, Mayor. This Friday, the center has the 80s dance. It starts at 7 p.m. It was a lot of fun last time, so everybody wants to go out and have a good time this Friday. Go to the center. And then on April 21st at 5:30, Halifax has the Diabetes Education Forum, and it's also at the center. You can find all this information on the city website. Hopefully, anybody who would like to attend the diabetes education is a lot of information that's very important, so please attend. Thank you.
And just one comment from me, this Saturday, April 23rd, 6 to 9 p.m. at the center, there's World Central Kitchen is the beneficiary of the humanitarian relief for Ukraine. It's an event that is being put on. I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to do right now, but you can go to our Instagram pages or Facebook pages or the center page if you want to participate. Is that good now? Yes. Okay, I guess we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there.